So can I get up? Hello. Okay, hold on. I need to sit down in a way that is.
On government. O Lord, our governor, bless the president of our country, that she may be a light of peace among the people and a blessing to other nations of the earth. Lord, keep this nation under your care. For the Prime Minister and members of the Cabinet, and to all in administrative authority, grant wisdom and grace in the exercise of their duties. Give grace to your servants, Lord. Lord's Prayer.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Amen. Father, remember those children, remember the youth, especially those children who have just completed the 11 plus. God, may you continue to have grace, favor upon the youth of this country. In Jesus' name.
Amen. Please remain standing as we observe a moment of silence for the late Honorable Sir Lloyd Erskine Sandiford, former Prime Minister of Barbados. Thank you. This House is now in session.
Announcements of pass.
Announcements by Her Honor the Speaker.
I would like to first acknowledge the presence of Her Honor Senator Elizabeth Thompson, Deputy President of the Senate. I also would like to acknowledge the Minister of Youth. Thank you. I would also like to acknowledge senior youth commissioners, facilitators, as well as members of the gallery.
Messages from Her Excellency, the President. Petitions, papers, government notices, private members' notices, notices of questions, reports from select committees, first readings of bills, statements by ministers, congratulatory and obituary speeches, personal explanations, motions for leave and absence, oral replies to questions, notices of motions for the adjournment of the House on matters of urgent public importance, orders of the day. Government business.
Government business is the order of the day.
Before we get to the order of business, government business, I first would like to acknowledge the judges who are also here with us. Thank you for your time. Government business, order of the day.
In the name of order number 1, in the name of the Honorable Leader of Government Business, to move the passing of the resolution that the Barbados National Youth Parliament, in the name of the people of Barbados, in particular the young people support and advocate for the holistic treatment and destigmatization of mental health and the prioritization of mental health, urges the Ministry of Health and Wellness, the Ministry of Education, Technological and Vocational Training, the Ministry of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs, and the Ministry of Youth Sports and Community Empowerment to consider the following recommendations. A. The BNYP, in collaboration with the other stakeholders, embark on the creation and expansion of a robust public awareness campaign to combat stigma, raise awareness about mental health issues, and promote help-seeking behaviors among young people across Barbados. B. Further prioritization of the reform of the Mental Health Act to be relevant for a modern Barbados. C. In educational institutions, the implementation of peer support groups should emerge as a valuable approach, whereby students volunteer are equipped with training and guidance to assist their fellow schoolmates. D. The establishment of more green spaces and further promotion of them to the public. E. Create more incentives and students studying psychiatry to improve the psychiatrist to patient ratio. F. The establishment of more adult daycares to offer our seniors a support community and social environment within which to age gracefully. And G. Promotion of already present and active mental health initiatives, as well as the establishment of government-funded initiatives to target men's mental health and provide safe spaces.
Leader of Government Business.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move the first reading of this resolution.
Proceed.
Move the passing of this resolution. Okay. Whereas Barbados, as a small island nation, has limited resources allocated to mental health services, including funding, infrastructure, and trained professionals. And whereas in recent times, the attention and urgency to discuss mental health has increased tremendously. However, multiple factors such as the COVID-19 pandemic and the inflation due to external shocks have increased the number of persons impacted by mental health. And whereas the boundaries between work life and home life have become increasingly blurred with the significant shift to working from home, this needs to be monitored carefully, as a poor work-life balance is a shortcut to stressed and burnt-out employees. And whereas there is a need for amendments in both the Mental Health Act, which was last amended in 1998, as well as the Barbados Safety and Health at Work Act, which does not address the development of safe spaces for employees in the workplace. And whereas the State of the World's Children 2021 report revealed that most persons start to show signs of mental health disorders between the ages of 10 to 19, which is approximately 16 million adolescents living within Latin America and the Caribbean. And whereas the Caribbean Public Health Agency, CARPA, reported in October 2022 that mental health disorders are now recognized as the 5th major non-communicable disease and a major threat to health and economic development in the 21st century. And whereas approximately 10% of Barbados' overall health expenditure are dedicated to mental health, with the psychiatric hospital receiving nearly all. Regarding human resources, the World Health Organization estimates that there are around 300 government-employed mental health specialists, or 104 per 100,000 people. And whereas there is a paucity of research, with mental health research accounting for less than 1.00% of the nation's entire research output, according to the Mental Health Atlas 2020 Country Profile Barbados. Whereas there is a dire need for a standalone prevention policy to combat the rising suicide rates of this nation, which as of 2019 were at 0.60% per 100,000 according to the World Bank. And whereas architecture and the environment has a significant impact on mental health, and studies conducted by the National Academy of Science suggest that connecting with nature for just a few minutes a day can improve mental health, and doctors in Toronto, Canada have begun prescribing naturopathic therapy healthcare as a non-medical treatment for some persons with mental health illnesses. And whereas the members of the Honorable Barbados National Youth Parliament, BNYP, are committed to improving the living standards of every Barbadian by using our voices to raise concerns for all matters affecting this country. Be it further resolved that the BNYP, in the name of the people of Barbados, and in particular young people, support and advocate for the holistic treatment and destigmatization of mental health and the prioritization of mental health. And be it further resolved that the BNYP urges the Ministry of Health and Wellness and the Ministry of Educational, Technological, and Vocational Training, the Ministry of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs, and the Ministry of Youth, Sports, and Community Empowerment to consider the following recommendations. A, the BNYP, in collaboration with other stakeholders, embark on the creation and expansion of a robust public awareness campaign to combat stigma, raise awareness about mental health issues, and promote help-seeking behaviors among young people across Barbados. B, further prioritization of the reform of the Mental Health Act to be relevant to a modern Barbados. C, in educational institutions, the implementation of peer support groups should emerge as a valuable approach whereby students volunteer are equipped with training and guidance to assist their fellow schoolmates. D, the establishment of more green spaces and further promotion of them to the public. E, more incentives for students studying psychiatry to improve the psychiatrist to patient ratio. F, the establishment of more adult daycares to offer our seniors a supportive community and social environment within which to age gracefully. And G, promotion of already present and active mental health initiatives, as well as the establishment of government-funded initiatives to target men's mental health and provide safe spaces. Madam Speaker, I now ask that this bill be read a second time. And I now ask that it be passed. I would like that to be stricken from the record. I raise to move the passing that this resolution do not pass.
I second that.
The resolution will be passed. Honorable Member Honorable Member Jofana Eiffel.
First of all, thank you, Madam Speaker, for allowing me to stand and speak in this honorable chamber on this blessed day. I was inadvertently taught by the women in my life to be strong, don't show cracks, and be that person that people can depend on, how to not cry when everyone else is. Because in order to comfort, you have to appear as if it doesn't hurt. You can't hurt. Because who would want to lean on a broken cane? Who would want to sit in a broken chair? And who would want to depend on a broken person? Things like sharing how I feel is not something I could do easily, because it was always my first nature to bottle things up. During exam season, my aunt passed at the age of 44. She was one of those always making jokes types of persons. But she too never came and expressed how she felt. She too continuously bottled up the generational trauma and allowed the mental scars to fester, until eventually she had enough and she gave up the fight. In Caribbean culture, this is very common. Some people don't even believe that mental disorders, mental illnesses like depression, anxiety, and bipolar disorder are even real. See, if knowledge is understanding, how can our people understand if they don't know? The government has suggested that there be more robust public awareness campaigns in order to bring this knowledge to our country. Because yes, we acknowledge that there already are methods to get this information out there, Madam Speaker. However, it is not reaching as far as it must. Because if our people are to understand their own mental health, much less that of others, then they must know, and they must be equipped with that knowledge. And we, the government, seek to not just provide more, but to grow it. Mental health is a very critical part in our society. According to the World Health Organization, mental health refers to the state of mental well-being, and I quote, refers to the state of mental well-being that enables people to cope with the stresses of life, realize their abilities, learn well and work well, and contribute to their community. It is an integral component of health and well-being that underpins our individual and collective abilities to make decisions, build relationships, and shape the world we live in. Mental health is a basic human right. And it is crucial to personal, community, and socio-economic development, end quote. How many people know that? With this in mind, we take the thinking caps we have on and turn them the other way, because we are ready to think differently to our ancestors. We say the revised Mental Health Act must be relevant to a modern Barbados. But what is a modern Barbados? A modern Barbados refers to the Barbados of the present and the Barbados of the future. And if our Mental Health Act is able to cater to each and every one of these people in our country, Madam Speaker, it must speak on all that counts, and it must be non-discriminatory in every form of the word and as inclusive as possible. If it is to cater to the future Barbados, then it must also be so inclusive that even though it cannot change with the times, that it is dynamic enough that future generations can find their place within it. And my colleagues will certainly speak to that. The government recognizes the need for primary intervention when it comes to mental health. That is tackling the issue before it develops an ugly head that will seek to swallow us all. In our resolution, there is an initiative seeking to provide that primary intervention with student volunteers who can support their peers and each other together as a group, which my colleagues will also give a deeper dive into. However, I want to make it extensively clear that these student volunteers will not be equipped with the level of training to diagnose persons or their schoolmates, but to be able to recognize the very basic signs of poor mental health and report to professionals. Also, this program does not seek to disrupt the academic or social life of students involved, but simply provides a safe space in which students can communicate healthily and safely with all the relevant professionals present, Madam Speaker. That includes guidance counselors and social workers. The primary level has been addressed. However, it is time to get to the secondary and tertiary level of intervention. This government acknowledges that there is a lack of persons pursuing careers in psychiatry. In fact, the psychiatrist and clinical psychologist to patient ratio is frightening. But it is not just this that is frightening, but also the amount of persons who are pursuing careers in social work. This government therefore sets out to ensure that more persons are encouraged to pursue these careers because they play a vital role in not just the primary intervention, but the secondary intervention and tertiary levels of intervention in our society. And without them, Madam Speaker, that goal that we have for the future cannot be achieved. Madam Speaker, while the aim of this resolution brought before you is to be as inclusive as possible, the need for serious intervention when it comes to men's mental health too has been acknowledged. See, even though there are more beds for men in the psychiatric hospital than women, and even though women are less likely than men to seek help for drug and substance abuse, research from the National Institute on Drug Addiction shows men are more likely to use illicit or illegal drugs than women. It is no secret that many of our high-risk youth are males. The persons not pursuing higher education are males. And the persons, when we look in the media, the persons committing suicides, many of them are males. Crime rates, many of them are our young males. So would it not make sense, Madam Speaker, that our young males have a bit of that attention too? This government also wants to promote these initiatives because there already are organizations and institutions out there helping Barbadians and Barbadian males to, well, unpack it. These organizations are doing good work, but in order to get the job done, we say there must be more. Madam Speaker, as I hand over the baton today to my colleagues, I don't do so with fear or uncertainty. I do so with hope and optimism, because even without my spectacles, I can see a clear vision for the future of Barbados, a vision of the future where our people are mentally healthy and they are radiant and glistening like the beautiful golden sands that coat our beaches. And for this reason, I support this resolution. And I, Madam Speaker, to you.
Honorable Member Tyrell Giles.
Good morning, Madam Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. I first want to begin this debate by extending my condolences to the family, friends, wife of the former Prime Minister, Sir Lloyd Erskine Sandiford. We saw that his tenure as Minister of Education has seen the establishment of the Barbados Community College, which in turn had a major impact, and a positive impact, I might add, on many Barbadians, including myself, as I'm sure many of us attended. In principle, Madam Speaker, I support this resolution. But if you really want to get down to specificity, I don't. And I'll tell you why. However, just like previous debates, whether it be climate change, whether it be educational reform, or whether it be crime, we know that this isn't an issue which can be politicized. And I'll further explain that mental health does not care which party line you toe. And Madam Speaker, I brought a bag today and you can see this is a rope. Because lest we forget that many of us left here in tears last debate because a 22-year-old had just committed suicide in St. Thomas. Lest we forget that just yesterday a middle-aged woman was found hanging in her home. Lest we forget that many of us had colleagues, sisters, and brothers in the Thrive Family Center at such a young age that we have to visit. Lest we forget how many candlelight ceremonies we had in this country over the past year for suicide. And lest we forget how many communities are still hurting to this day. Dr. Colin Rickard, Madam Speaker, who drafted and I need to quote this, the mental health reform proposal in 2001, he said, the burden of mental health on both developed and developing economies is significant, comprising of 15% of the total morbidity as measured by those in work who report sickness days due to a mental illness. So you can understand that mental health and mental illnesses affect us all, even in work, which is why we now have the terms such as low days. The mind just isn't there. It is against that backdrop that I hear say that the solutions provided to us, well, recommended to us by the government, aren't enough. Because green spaces, Madam Speaker, and incentives for just psychiatry students, it shows that the resolution therefore lacks an academic review of the literature surrounding mental health. And I therefore go on to say that these recommendations will never have stopped those victims from using the rope. Madam Speaker, however, there is one salient point in this resolution, and I believe that that one is the one that says that society needs the sensitization, the campaigns, public awareness. We live in a society that appears to be pregnant with the view that as long as you go to the psychiatric hospital, mental, Blackrock, Jenkins, whatever you want to call it, that you are mad forever. We live in a society that believes that as long as you go to therapy, something must be wrong. any psychologist, any social worker or social practitioner can tell you that you need to go to therapy for maintenance of good mental health and not when something is wrong. Well, along with when something is wrong. However, my plea to society is this. When does one pay their debt to society? When is the debt cleared? You go to prison, we label persons as a criminal forever. You go to the mental hospital, we label them as mad forever, cognitively challenged. And I can give an example here where just a few weeks ago I was trying to find housing, and this isn't just talk, Madam Speaker, this isn't just talk. We were trying to find housing through the National Peace Program under the leadership of Minister Lane. 2 persons from the psychiatric hospital, 2 persons from the prison came home. And if I call landlords and apartment buildings, they say, we have housing available, Mr. Giles, come down. From the time I mentioned, well, the person just came home from prison, oh, no, the spot gone. And this isn't fair. To what extent and when does one pay their debt to society? It hurts me then because it discredits. Are we trying to discredit the work of Minister Lane and his team who go to the prison weekly? Are we trying to discredit the work of the doctors at the psychiatric hospital? Are we trying to discredit this work? This is why the UNDP needs to be commended for their sensitization program which they have in the works. And this is why I fully support the view that said Dr. Rickard said that we need more community mental health centers. And I envision this to be where we use community centers where persons go, well, where persons should be going to play after school, where persons should be going to do evening vocational skills. I imagine we can have an office in these centers for some kind of mental support, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, it hurts me again when we speak about NGOs who should be supporting these initiatives. Because we have NGOs in this island who are so worried about which NGO will get the recognition, which NGO will get the credit for a particular initiative, instead of just working together and implement things. Why don't you think we have a halfway house? We have a halfway house. We have a building sitting, waiting,
Honorable
doing
Member,
nothing.
you have 2 minutes remaining.
I'll land the plane, Madam Speaker. But we have facilities for a halfway house, but everyone is worrying about who will get the credit for the implementation. Madam Speaker, I heard the Prime Minister tried to gloss over such a topic that I'm passionate about the social workers. Now, the social workers are low in number not because of a lack of interest, but because of a lack of capacity at the university. So don't say that persons aren't interested. Persons are interested, but the university only accepts 13 to 15 of these students. And we need, as the Prime Minister usually says, scale, pace, and scope, so that we can accept all 60 to 70 students who apply for the social work program at the University of the West Indies annually. And leading into the conclusion, Madam Speaker, we need then to encourage our psychologists who are worrying about jobs because they have the view that Bajans will not pay for mental health support. And as I conclude, Madam Speaker, I say here that mental health does not stand in a box by itself. It is therefore linked to things like drug abuse. We see that 46% of students in a survey done by the NCSA back in 2014, I believe, 46% of students said that it's easily accessible for them, illegal drugs. Madam Speaker, as I wrap this up, youth advocates need to come together and stop trying to pick and choose what they want to advocate about because mental health is of high priority. They need to stop operating in silos. Let's Unpack It. I saw a beautiful package by Let's Unpack It this morning led by Mr. David Johnson and Chelsea Jordan. And it comprises, and this is very important, I love to make it a document of the House or even the country if I can. But it comprises a list of governmental and NGO agencies which provide mental health support, which all of us can benefit from. Don't wait until the time comes that you're feeling down and lonely, but get that support now and check out that document by Let's Unpack It. But I close here by saying NGOs themselves need to come together, and they need to tie themselves together before someone else ties the rope. And NGOs need to become inseparable and able to be split apart before someone else slits their wrists. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Member Tremaine Trotman.
That's very sensitive. Thank you. Thank you for recognizing me, Madam Speaker. People who see people want others to see people. People who hear people want others to hear people. And people who feel people want others to feel people. A quote by the Honorable Prime Minister of this country, Mia Moore-Motley. Madam Speaker, we are here today because we see people. We see how mental health has affected persons, especially coming out of the pandemic. That is why we are bringing this resolution to this honorable chamber today. These people who suffer in silence every day because their environment is not conducive to the well-being of their mental health. The Prime Minister, sitting to the left of me, cited the WHO in saying that mental health is a state of well-being, and that word, Madam Speaker, is important in underlining how we treat to mental health. It is not any different from our physical health. In the same way we feel sick some days, and other days we feel like we can jump over the moon, the same is true for our mental health. So true that a child could understand how states of matter change. Madam Speaker, I am sure we all learned in primary school and secondary school how water has 3 states of matter: solid, liquid, and gas. But let's get out of the lab and back to this debate. Because while our mental health is not as simple as the states of water, they are both affected by the environment in which they are in. Madam Speaker, do you know, according to the National Alliance of Mental Health, 1 in every 5 young people suffer from a mental illness. This could be due because of because of abuse, trauma, neglect, social isolation, or loneliness. I would like to cite UNICEF in their report, Generations Are Limited, the Well-Being of Young People in Barbados, where they put that the cycle of poverty is often the result of trauma, generational trauma. And I remember when we visited the psychiatric hospital and the family clinic, they mentioned how they work with parents to combat and treat these generational trauma, and it is important that we get that education out to every single person in this country. Again, Madam Speaker, it is because of the environment. And the sad reality we face in this country is that not everyone has the ability to change their environment so easily. I'm sure we've all heard, well, if you don't like it, do something about it. Or, if you're in a bad situation, leave. But we cannot and should not, Madam Speaker, believe that every individual has that ability, whether it be because, as I mentioned earlier, poverty, or a single mother trying to provide for her family, or whatever it is, being, as I mentioned earlier, living in silence. That is why, Madam Speaker, this resolution here today speaks about hearing people. And we have a plan of action dedicated to ensuring that everyone, regardless of their age, sex, religion, ability, social or economic standing can have access to mental care. This resolution speaks to the establishment of more green spaces and further promotion of them to the public. Madam Speaker, a green space is defined by Lucy Taylor in her research entitled Defining Green Spaces, multiple uses across multiple disciplines, as that which includes forests, parks, water bodies, recreational and sports grounds, and goes on to broaden that term later in her study as any natural area or urban vegetation. Madam Speaker, the importance of green spaces cannot be ignored. As I would have read in this House earlier, that naturopathic therapy is already being prescribed by doctors in Canada to patients who feel mentally ill. We all know how bad we wanted to be outside during the COVID-19 pandemic, and how good it felt once we could begin to move around as we wanted. I have an aunt, Madam Speaker, who loves being outside, just doing something. Whether she's tending to her garden, doing woodwork, making plant pots using a technique she saw on YouTube, that is when she isn't watching African movies. But the point I'm making, ma'am, is that whether she realizes it or not, subconsciously, every time she says, I feel bored, I get outside and do something, she is not only improving her physical, but also her mental state. And on the other side of the spectrum, I have an uncle who lives close to the city, where the houses are so close, if he wanted to grow tomatoes, he could not. But his way of subconsciously dealing with mental health is by going on the block and socializing. Now, Madam Speaker, imagine if those roles were reversed. My uncle might easily go and find a new block or run shop to socialize, and I'm not sure my aunt would be able to cope in the same way. While I, as a member from St. Andrew, can enjoy the greenery that we have, I am cognizant that not all Barbadians are so fortunate. That is why this government has mentioned green spaces in this resolution, because it's our hope that persons will use these spaces when they need a change in environment. And the environment does not only speak to physical, but it also speaks to the social. It is no surprise that we live in the most interconnected time in history, yet many of us feel so lonely. It is time we feel people, Madam Speaker, empathize with people, and stop treating others as if they are just notifications that we can swipe away at any time. In a country where human capital is one of our most important resources, we cannot allow anyone to fall on the wayside. Check in on your friends and family, as socializing can improve your mental health. Yet there are those who believe that socializing is not important. And Nicholas Eppley, in a 2022 paper, calls this under-sociality, where persons underestimate the positive impacts of socializing, as a person's well-being depends heavily on the relationships and maintaining those positive relationships. For those, Madam Speaker, who need more serious help, the government plans to increase access to mental health care by ensuring that all polyclinics and outpatient clinics have the necessary resources needed to provide care to their patients. No person in this country, or furthermore in St. Andrew to be specific, should have to be waiting 2 to 3 hours on a bus when their mental illness is high. Madam Speaker, as I sense my time is drawing near, I would like to read a message that I would ask you to make a document to the House earlier. From Let's Unpack It, the Vice President of Let's Unpack It, Chelsea Jordan, 24-year-old Barbadian.
Honorable member, you have 2 minutes remaining.
Thank you. Youth mental health is not a topic we can continue to put off. The youth are our present, and an unhealthy present makes for an unhealthy future. The truth is, mental health problems plus illnesses do not discriminate. They do not discriminate. They affect us all. The quicker we can understand this, the more deliberate actions we can take for our youth and for the safer and healthier living standards of our population. We need more research, more resources, more targeted health policies. We need more mental health for our people and more for the youth in the Caribbean. This resolution is a stepping stone in seeking to do that for mental health. We are seeking to do more for mental health and more for the youth in this country. Because as I said in the beginning, if we do not see people, we cannot care for them. We, the government, are committed to improving the physical and social environment of all Barbadians. And with that, I commend this honorable resolution to this House. And I thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize Honorable Member Nikolai Peters.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to begin by offering my condolences to the fourth Prime Minister of Barbados, our Lloyd Erskine Sandiford. Thank you. What is mental health? It's the thing that should be paramount in our lives. Today, I wasn't sure if I was going to be as vulnerable as I intended, but after seeing the tour of the psychiatric hospital, it changed my mind. I had a change of heart. On October 2022, I was hospitalized at the UE Hospital in Jamaica while studying. February 2023, the QEH Hospital. And not so long after, and it may come as a shock to some people, February 2023, assessed at the psychiatric hospital. Now, my thing about this is that upon hearing this, some people's opinions may change of you, because how you get there, you're doing drugs, you're doing this, what happened? Now I'll tell you this much. Stress, lack of sleep, all of these factors can lead you to the collapsing of your brain. Now let me ask you this. When the engine check sign comes on, we don't ignore it, or at least we shouldn't, I should say, because some people do. And now that that information was shared, we can get into what the statistics look like. The statistics go something like this. An estimated 26% of Americans aged 18 and older, so that's roughly 1 in 4 adults, suffering from a diagnosable mental disorder. Approximately 9.5% of American adults aged 18 and over will suffer from a depressive illness inclusive of major depression, bipolar disorder, or dysphonia each year. And finally, 4 times as many men commit suicide as women do, quoted from Hopkins Medicine. Which leads me to my next point. Sadly, a woman from the St. James area committed suicide yesterday. Sadly, in the month of May 2023, David Taylor was lost as to why and how his son took his life, Akeem Taylor. As far as he was concerned, as he said, everything was going quite fine in his son's life. And I quote, he had everything he wanted. He had money, he got girls, life was good. I'm being serious. End of quote. Sadly, in the month of April 2022, I lost my best friend Carlos Yearwood to suicide. No heartbreak could be tantamount to this. Sadly, it won't be the last. How do we prevent this? How do we dilute and potentially eradicate, 1, the stigma, 2, the crippling and detrimental thoughts polluting and possessing our youth and citizens at large? How do we get people in the early stages? By early, I mean when the weight is not as yet as heavy on their shoulders. I'm here today quite literally to say, just because you've lost your way does not mean you cannot find it again. My answer to these questions, MHM. In the time that I had to think, in the time that I had to recuperate, whether mentally or physically, because 1, I lost weight, and that's another thing I must point out. What are the signs that someone's mental health is deteriorating? Could it be the deterioration or degradation of their dress/attire? Could it be their withdrawal from public settings? Could it also just be a deafening silence in a public area or, Again, my answer, MHM. I've coined it mental health management. In hopes of working in congruence with the government, we as youth parliamentarians will take an approach similar to that of a youth consultant. Only difference being they're seeing people in a closer age range and will bring on comfort and a sense of reliability. Funding will somehow be attained so we can buy journals for the younger children. Hopefully, we can have a bi-monthly physical check-in. Confidentiality will be had. Healthy and vulnerable relationships will be had. And this is in response to G about implementation. While promotion is all fine and dandy, creation is also imperative, hence MHM. It may seem minuscule, but you know what they say. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. Ladies and gentlemen, we're steering the vehicles of our lives. Therefore, in the future, help a sister and a brother steer. We must be kind to each other, we must listen, and we must also have a sense of empathy in everything that we do. Because one, you do not know what people are going through. Two, you don't know if it will be the straw that breaks the camel's back. Quite frankly, this was the most frustrating episode of my life. It's still going on. 8 months in, I lost my speech. I couldn't walk. I wasn't eating. I lost 20 pounds for crying out loud. And lying on a hospital bed, do you know what it's like to hear the most asinine comments about yourself when you're really just going through it and you need a shoulder to cry on? If you ask a man in today's society what's going on, he's not going to tell you. And I promise you, a decade later, he'll jokingly say, man, they're going through something back then, but the truth is he would never say it. And you know how I know it? Because it was me. I know people like that, and I don't want any more Carlos Earwoods. I don't want any more Akeem Taylors. I don't want any more of the rope, as my brother would have said. As the legend Buju Banton said, be strong. Keep your head above the water. One day, things must get better. Yes, colleagues, big brother, Madam Speaker, thank you for listening today, and I hope that this is not out of state and out of mind by the end of this conversation.
I recognize Honorable Member Sarah Bisram.
Madam Speaker, honorable members, good morning. 30% of adolescents in Barbados report having parents or guardians who understand their problems and worries. Madam Speaker, that is less than half. UNICEF estimates that the prevalence of mental illnesses in Barbados among adolescents aged 10 to 19 was 16.5% in 2019, and mental illnesses in Latin America and the Caribbean cost the economy $30.6 billion. Madam Speaker, as I start today, I'm not sure what to be more mortified by. The silent cry for help in these statistics, or the fact that, like the rest of the world, many Barbadians are unable to even define the term mental illness, let alone recognize the symptoms or risk factors associated with any of them. Madam Speaker, this is not good enough. If there's anything the pandemic has taught us, is the fragility of mental health. Post-pandemic Barbados must have a system that equips every citizen in this country with the tools to not survive, but thrive. That is the power of action, and why I choose to support this resolution. Specifically, the provision for a robust public awareness campaign to combat stigma, raise awareness about mental health issues, and promote help-seeking behaviors among young people across Barbados. According to the Mental Health Atlas 2020, Barbados has 9 community-based or non-hospital mental health outpatient facilities. Mental health services can also be accessed from the psychiatric hospital itself, the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, private psychiatrists, and health centers. But Madam Speaker, we cannot just have the services and make them available, especially when the conversation around them remains one of shame. I agree with the Leader of Opposition. To many Barbadians, the psychiatric hospital is still the mental. Young people have nothing to worry about, and other people have it worse. Solutions preceding awareness are pointless. You cannot and will not seek help for something that you don't recognize as a problem. Not only that, but the once mad, always mad mentality of our population will continue to dampen any attempt at reintegration until education is at the forefront. We talk about lack of research and how successful research includes the voices of those with lived experiences of mental health conditions. But Madam Speaker, the truth of the matter is that by labeling every other person as mad, we have not proven to anyone that they can safely engage or actively participate. And so the challenge of developing relevant mental health programs and initiatives continues, and it will continue. Until stigma is gone, voices will be silenced. The government is suggesting a public awareness campaign, specifically one that takes advantage of the social media space. Something as simple as a jingle debunking mental health myths, or Instagram live conversations with mental health professionals and experts, or even hosting creative and literary arts competitions where we encourage people to research and share their experiences with mental health go a long way in placing a spotlight on the issue. We're already seeing the impacts of such campaigns. A lot of people mentioned Let's Unpack It. Let's Unpack It. Right here in the Caribbean, is providing a platform for actionable conversations and breaking down the stigma. Their initiatives like Feature Fridays and upcoming podcasts are instrumental in correcting misconceptions about mental health. Yes, there are already initiatives in place. But Madam Speaker, we're talking about expansion and consistency. The same way I can sing along to CBC ads at 7 o'clock and rattle off the periodic table is the same way I should be able to sing the mental health crisis hotlines. But Madam Speaker, I can't. And I'm sure that the honourable members in this chamber can't as well. The people that need the hotline can't. Madam Speaker, during 2020, 8 of the country's suspected suicides claimed persons under the age of 40. Of those 8, 4 were teenagers. Behind that fact are faces. Faces of people who deserve to access help without stigma. Faces of people who deserve better than just get over it. Faces of people who deserve to recognize symptoms and seek help. Faces of people. Our people. As I conclude...
Honourable member, on what point do you rise?
Hi, good morning again, Madam Speaker. I rise on a point of order. The honourable member is misleading the House. We, the youth of Barbados, have significantly shown our displeasure with jingles, bus stops, or whatever else was just mentioned. We think that we have to be a bit more creative when trying to raise public awareness. Thank you.
Honourable member, I would like to let you know that you have 1 minute remaining.
Okay. The point of the resolution speaks about expansion and conversations. The jingles that I mentioned or whatever else that I mentioned is not the only thing. We understand that everybody is not going to be able to connect with that. But the point was that we need something that persons can remember exactly what the hotline number is. We subconsciously remember stuff even if we don't view them as the best. I can sing along to the CBC ads on television. Does that mean I'm interested in the CBC ads on television? No. But it sticks in my head because it was memorable. And that's what we need. We need wider conversations, and the expansion programs will seek to do that, and we will receive feedback from students and whoever else in the public so that they can be catered to exactly what persons need and what conversations they want to have. As I conclude, I leave with the following. Something's tightening around the orb, guaranteeing my existence, and it's making it harder to be. Caribbean mental health youth advocate and spoken word artist, Khadija Halliday. Silent cries for help. That's the struggle of our people, and the impact is incalculable. We live in a society where it's a sin to not be okay. What we choose to do next matters. Cannot continue in this fight against the mental crisis without the weapon of an educated and sensitized public. That's the first step of change, and exactly what this resolution seeks to do. I'm obliged to you.
I would like to recognize the honorable member Tyson Holder.
Madam Speaker, honorable members of the House, I would like to extend my condolences to the nation and the family of the late Honorable Sir Lloyd Erskine Sandiford. Before I start my speech, now, I am pleased that we have been given the opportunity to shed light on a topic that has been underlooked for far too long. And it's unfortunate because the reality is that mental health is real and universal. It's time that we as a society take care of our mental health, as it is just as important as our physical health. Now, let me first start by commending the government on their willingness to lead this conversation by presenting this resolution today. However, I believe that it lacks substance. The only way to combat the level of stigma on this seemingly taboo conversation is to raise awareness and educate persons on the real adversities of neglecting mental health. The resolution further goes on to discuss reforming the mental health, and I'm also in agreement with this, that it needs to be revised to suit a more modern Barbados. However, from point C, things start to get a little murky. Now, it states, in educational institutions, the implementations of peer support groups should emerge as a valuable approach whereby student volunteers are equipped with training and guidance to assist their fellow schoolmates. Now, this is all fine and dandy. Students already have many, many resources extended to them for their mental health. There are guidance counselors on campuses, as well as online. But where are the mental health services for the teachers? The teachers who have to constantly come in every single day with their own personal lives and function and are expected to function at maximum capacity. Every single day, teachers are expected to live up to a certain standard, but yet we don't include them in the conversation of their mental health. The leader of government business spoke to a resolution that includes all, but where is the inclusion for teachers? Now, my biggest problem with this resolution is that also the main point about a resolution that speaks on all counts. However, this resolution fails to mention one of the biggest increasing problems that we have. Less than a year ago, psychologist Sean Clark called on the state to pay urgent attention to mental health, as there was one suicide being recorded once per month. Now, where are the programs in the resolution designed to cater specifically to suicide prevention? Because as my leader of opposition stated, these green spaces would not have prevented them from committing suicide. Where is the call to action to create a national public 24-hour suicide hotline service that is easily accessible? Easily accessible. Now, finally, the government seeks to spend more money on the creation of adult daycares. As of 2022 to 2023, in the estimates, the government has spent upwards of $40.6 million under the care of the elderly program. Now, adult daycares, yes, are needed, but mental health is an all-person approach. everyone needs to be included, and this resolution, Madam Speaker, fails to do such. I insist that this resolution not be passed, as it needs more work. Much obliged, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Member Caleb Roach.
Thank you for the recognition, Madam Speaker. Ma'am, today I would first like to start by saying I fully support the resolution laid before this honorable chamber provided by my government. But today, ma'am, I would like to focus on the policy aspect that needs to happen in order for the resolution to become, as we stated before, inclusive, relatable, and up-to-date for modern Barbados. And ma'am, this can happen through facilitation through government. Government has the social partnership. Government is able to engage the stakeholders, such as the Let's Unpack It organization, the disability community. Everybody in the country needs to be able to sit down with government and lay out the issues that they are seeing with their sectors in mental health. Because at the end of the day, man, it is a whole country approach and not just a government side approach. I also want to draw reference to 2019 report by the Ministry of Health and Wellness. With this report, they outlined their commitment to reintroducing and reforming a new robust system for financing. And this framework, I would like to highlight two critical recommendations within this report. The first one, ma'am, was recommendation to make mental health, to make the health system more effective, and to implement a system that can generate and guarantee earmarked funding that can be used to hire and train specialized staff for the psychiatric hospital who I know need it, as stated by many members in this honorable chamber. But man, not only they need the resources lacking, but I believe that it's necessary for our nation's development that we have more specialized trained staff in the country, because, ma'am, I think only seven psychologists on island, and man, that's not enough for a country that has a population over 200,000. That is not enough. And that's why this government is committed to prioritizing the reform of the Act.
Honorable Member, on what point do you rise?
Madam Speaker, the honorable member is misleading the House. I'm not sure which Barbados he's living in that only has 7 psychologists, but we know that psychologists graduate from the University of the West Indies in the dozens every year.
Wait, okay. But, Madam Speaker, I know the honorable member was at the psychiatric hospital with us when they said that a lot of the people when they graduate university, they leave the island, brain drain right there, ma'am. So, honorable member, I'd like you to please educate yourself and have an elephant memory. Thank you. But, ma'am, not only just we need the resources and the personnel training, but, ma'am, the system does not, as people may have stated earlier, it does not properly include the youth. And that's why in this report, ma'am, it states the establishment of a national adolescent health strategic plan and adolescent health and wellness promotion areas in both mental health and sexual health. Madam Speaker, these are initiatives that are needed. Well, thank you, Prime Minister. But, man, the ministry was able to build this report based on the momentum of the 2030 agenda, because, man, they recognize that in order for the sustainable goals and development to be reached, consistent and heavy funding must be given to our youth. And, man, that is why we say that the prioritization of the reform is needed to include all of this that I just stated earlier. But, man, not only just the youth is not properly included, but the disabled community, ma'am. When we look at other countries like Australia, there is a national disability insurance scheme. A scheme, ma'am, through vigorous consultations with their civil society, they were able to do that. I'm not saying that we're able to do it on the same scale as Australia, but I mean Barbados is a country that can punch above its weight, and we can do it in a pragmatic way that can benefit all of society, especially those in the disabled community who also suffer from mental illness. Ma'am, I believe that Barbados if we want to reach the gold standards of excellence, not just the funding, ma'am, but the inclusivity is needed. And ma'am, I'm not just saying this as just talk, because this government is committed to doing the action.
Honorable member, you have 1 minute remaining.
Don't worry, ma'am. Landy playing. But, Madam Speaker, I also now take this with that backdrop, salute the noble professionals at the Psychiatric Hospital who, despite the lack of resources, despite the lack of support and advocacy, they're still able to go in every single day and do a noble job and to administer the mental health treatment that the country is so in dire need of more support of. And as a believer of government business, this government is a government that hears and sees people. So do not worry, help is on the way. And this government, I know, I will push them to make sure that the reform is inclusive, and the reform is relevant to modern Barbados, and that the reform will include all of society. And with that, ma'am, I'm obliged to you.
I recognize the Honorable Member Maya Spooner.
Good morning, Madam Speaker and honorable members. I would like to express my condolences to the nation and to the family of the former Prime Minister Sir Lloyd Erskine Sandiford. Before I start with my speech, I would like to make things clear between mental health and self-esteem. However, I know that there's a link between the two, but there's a blur line between the two. So mental health is a state of mental well-being that enables people to cope with the stresses of life, realize their ability, learn well and work well, and contribute to the community. This is from the World Health Organization. And self-esteem, according to Weber University Counseling and Psychological Center, self-esteem is the overall opinion of yourself, your belief about your abilities, limitations. Self-esteem is shaped by your thoughts, relationships, and experiences, including those related to culture, religion, and societal status. To summarize this, mental health is the overall state of mind. This is reality. We know that this is real because we can go to a psychologist and the psychologist can run their tests and figure out that the person might have a depression. However, self-esteem is how you value yourself as a person. And self-esteem is a personal opinion and is not fact. It's what you believe to be. Now today I would like to speak on B and F. B, I am very glad that the government is finally addressing this issue. And to ensure that the information is being added to the mental health, To ensure that the information added to the Mental Health Act is helpful and beneficial and of substance to the society, to help the people of Barbados, and to help create and develop this new modern Barbados. And this can be achieved by conducting surveys and having community research. Because by conducting these surveys and doing community research, we can collect data and information about the current state of mental issues of Barbados. Thus examining this so that you can add more value or you can take out what is not necessary in the Mental Health Act. F. In subset F, there are 21 existing adult daycares across Barbados, mainly in St. Michael, Christchurch, and St. Philip. And establishing more adult daycares is simply not enough, because I believe, Madam Speaker, that 21 adult daycares is adequate to be relocated across Barbados.
Honorable member, you have 2 minutes remaining.
I will soon wrap up. To ensure that these adult daycares are relocated adequately, I also believe that surveys should be conducted as well, so that you are able to see in what parishes there are highly populated area for elderly people. Wrapping up, Madam Speaker. I believe that a program or a training or education system should be implemented to help educate people who are taking care of their elderly loved ones. And I don't see this in subset F, because people get frustrated, and the easiest thing that they can do is throw their elderly loved ones in the hospital. In conclusion, Madam Speaker, just 1 year ago, in 2022, according to a publication from the QEH Hospital, there has been an overpopulation with the abandonment of elderly patients at the QEH Hospital, thus putting a strain on the medical supplies. So 1 year later, in 2023, Minister of Health and Wellness Senator Dr. the Most Honorable Jerome Walcott to report that a committee has been established to recent weeks to deal with the placement of long-stay elderly patients in an alternative care. An example of this is a geriatric hospital, but I don't agree with putting them there, because when these people are ripped from their home to be placed in a hospital, to then be placed in a geriatric hospital, is heartbreaking, is making them feel abandoned and lost.
Honorable member, your time is up.
Okay, thank you.
I now recognize the Honorable Member Narissa McQuarrie Williams.
Good morning, Madam Speaker. Good morning, honorable members. There's a time for everything and a season for every activity under the sun. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot. A time to tear down and a time to build. Now is the time to reset and rebuild the legislative foundations of our mental health system in this nation to accommodate the growth of our nation. Honorable members, I'm not sure if you've had taken the time to look at our Mental Health Act. There's no denying the fact that this should be a relic of our past. This 34-page document, it focuses on the institutionalization of individuals facing mental health challenges, looks even at the management of their property and their affairs. But on our tour of the psychiatric hospital, what did you see? Did you not see a staff committed to the well-being and the rehabilitation of their clients? Did you not see a staff looking to reintegrate these individuals into society? The director is even seeking to look for ways that they reduce hospitalization. Should not our act reflect such efforts, support such efforts? But we want to take it a step further, because when we say holistic, we mean holistic. This reform should look at including all community-based approaches that we can consider in this country. Currently, if you go on the streets and ask about mental health, just discussing mental health, individuals may first think of the psychiatric hospital and then a few other stories that they heard that are not pleasant. But is it not because mental health in this land is almost synonymous with the psychiatric hospital? Again, our act reflects that. So when we prioritizing the reform of our Mental Health Act to be relevant to a modern Barbados. What does a modern Barbados look like to you? A modern Barbados should look like a country where stigma is little to none, and furthermore, all walks of life in this society understands that mental health is important. Our reform looks at our resolution that we propose today is looking at initiatives to implement for all walks, elderly to the young, in schools. We are therefore also aiming to create an act that facilitates these initiatives. In Australia, the best practice, the mental health system that is looked up to, there's a notable partnership between government and the private and community sector. But what is even more notable is the focus on government on the treatment and the focus of the private and community sector on well-being programs, support, and assistance. So we want to use this forum to provide a few suggestions as the Mental Health Commission is going forth with the reform of this act. Firstly, we want clearly defined roles of the psychiatric hospital and its staff being focused on treatment integration, but more so we want an annual report of the mental health care system in this nation. Every year, we care about the financial state of our nation, so we have a budget. If we say that 5 in 10 individuals are affected by adverse childhood experiences and that affects their
Honorable
growth,
member,
should we not
you have
care?
1 minute remaining.
I'm winding up. Should we not care about the mental health care system and report and publicize on it as well? On the other hand, there needs to be a new entity created to promote and focus on the prevention of mental illnesses in this nation. Similar to Australia's Mental Health and Wellbeing Promotion Office, we need an institution, an entity that will focus on the promotion of these initiatives. Furthermore, we need an entity that is led by NGOs and social enterprises that can push this information in their respective communities. I've said it before, we are one body and we aim to complete this work in this nation. And therefore, we want it reflected in the reform of this act. I'm obliged to you.
I will now recognize the Honorable Member, Nathaniel Niles.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, today I would first like to give my condolences to Sir Lloyd Erskine Sandiford family. I pray he will continue resting in peace. But today, I come to deal with the resolution. Right? Let's look at Resolution D. It states clearly the establishment of more green spaces, further promotion of them to the public. Now, I must commend the government side on explaining what that is. But it seems as though you're trying to tell me that if a person is having a mental breakdown, they should go out where there are green spaces to go and do some vegetation, or to go and kick a football, and that will solve the problem. No, it will not. So when you are going to bring an implementation, state to me correctly how it will help with mental health. Because the normal Bajan have to understand what is the point of the implementation, not only us in this honorable chamber. So work on that. Thank you very much. The next point I would like to look at is F in the resolution. It clearly states the establishment of more adult daycares to offer our seniors a supportive community and social environment within which to age gracefully. All right, I agree.
Honorable Member, on what point do you rise?
Madam Speaker, raise on a point of order. The honourable member is misleading the House. If he would have read the resolution and listened to my speech, he would have seen that being in nature and just spending time in nature for just a few minutes a day, as outlined in the resolution, has already been seen and proven to have a significant impact on persons' mental health, so far that doctors are prescribing it. And the best way to combat mental health is prevention. So The member is grossly misleading House, and I would like you to retract that statement.
Madam Speaker, firstly, I would like back my time wasted, and secondly, I do not retract my statement due to the fact that because it worked for one person does not mean it will work for everybody.
Your request was acknowledged.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. No, I personally agree with the resolution implementation F, but however, I would like to say I would like the same for the patient at the psychiatric hospital. Why can't they have a supportive community to help deal with their mental issues? Why wasn't they put on here to be helped? Why only the old persons, Madam Speaker? But I will let the government figure out their problems. On to other matters, Madam Speaker. Suicide in this country. We realize that these days a lot of males are going through the adders, as the old people would say, due to suicide, due to also shooting, and also prison, Madam Speaker. Our males in this society are going, and the question comes to mind, when the males go, how will procreation come about? Because as far as I know, it takes a man and woman to create a child. Let's look at the birth rates in this society. The decline in birth rates, to be exact. It says here that it declined 25% in 2019, 2020, and 2021, and it went up 1%, 26% decline in 2022. And the information comes from macrotrends.net for those who want to see if it's credible. Thank you. Right? But we as a society have to understand we need to put a stop to these issues. We first talked about how we need to have more children, but yet these young men still going by wayside, and the government side is not doing nothing to address that situation, Madam Speaker. But once again, I digress. Don't worry to stand. I will go on to my next point. Being your brother's keeper. Now, in the old time days, you always had a man or female in the gap to help out. You would be passing, he would say, good morning, you don't look right. Tell you what happened, take a sack, let's have a conversation. Those days are gone, Madam Speaker. The days where a person would see the rain falling, so they're going to pick up the neighbor clothes and put it inside, those days are gone. You go and do that, the police will be called, Madam Speaker. We need to bring back a society where we work together and help each other to get through problems, Madam Speaker. That is the day, so we need to take some ethics from the older generation to help in today's day and age, Madam Speaker. My next point. I would like to address not the government that is a couple feet away from me or escape over the table. I will not do that in this honorable house. But the government in this country. Now, I would like to quote the word of the Lord. So for those who haven't went church, Sunday gone, I will give you a little breather of the word of the Lord. Now, Proverbs 4, verse 5 says, get wisdom, get understanding, forget it not, neither decline from the words
Honorable
of
member, you have 1 more minute. Please wrap up. Thank you.
No problem, Madam Speaker. Due to that notion, I will make this quick. And I send it in the National Barbados Parliament Youth chat. The government of the country stop children that have a reading, that struggles with reading, from being able to have assistant readers in the exam. How can that be? Every single person in here can quote and say that 11 plus is one of the most mentally draining exams in this country. But yet they deny them access to get help. The principal clearly stated that due to not having the assistant reader, it is probable that these children's marks will be lowered. How can the government of this country deny the help that those children needed? The principal and their parents worked together to pay a psychologist to show the necessary paperwork that showed their struggle with reading. Now, as far as they know, in this society, if you can't read and you can't write, that means that you're what? Illiterate. But in this case, these children just struggle with reading. So I understand that favoritism is real, Madam Speaker, and I land in the plane now. I understand that favoritism is real, but they could have stated, okay, let's do it in private where the children could get the assistant reader to ensure that
Honorable
they go
member,
to the
your time is up.
Madam Speaker, can I just finish off, please? Please.
Please wrap it up.
Yes,
And
please, Madam
swiftly,
Speaker. I am just saying that those students should have gotten the assistant reader to make sure that they go to the right school. We have to come to the conclusion whether or not we want to get the next generation something to build with, or if we want to get them brimstone and ashes to sweep out. And with that, I am obliged to you. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. I will now recognize the Honorable Member Ariel Harewood. Ariel, apologies.
Madam Speaker, honorable members, good morning. Today I stand here to use my voice to speak about the mental health of school children. Now, the mental health of school children is, to me, a kind of sensitive topic to me, because me being as a school child is very sensitive to me. But mental health challenges among students have become increasingly prevalent, and it is crucial, and the educational institutions need to address this issue very effectively. Now, I will be talking on point C, where it states the implementation of peer support groups within the schools. I believe, and we believe, that the implementation of peer support groups within the schools are very much needed. Why? Because one, not all students really, let me say quote unquote, trust people, and the first person that they will turn to when something is wrong with them is their friends. Be quite honest, it is going to be their friends when they have something wrong with them. That is one. Two is that the peer support group can offer understanding and effective empathy that not all adults always possess. Three, it will be promoting emotional resilience. By the students will be hopefully sharing healthy coping mechanisms and personal experience so that everybody and each student can learn from each other to help with their challenges and whatever the case may be. Along with these student volunteers, they will be working very closely along with the guidance counselor, under the guidance counselor's eyes. The student volunteers will be where the students will volunteer themselves, or the guidance counselor will handpick them in every year group. Also, the student volunteer group, the peer support group, can also offer academic and well-being, where students will be more likely be able to have better concentration, attendance, and engagement in their studies. Now, let me speak from personal experience here. I have suffered a loss from a close friend, and I was dealing with that loss while being in school. And when I got the news about that, I didn't want to get out my bed. I didn't want to eat. I didn't want to drink anything. I didn't even want to socialize with anybody. I didn't want to be with anybody. I didn't want anybody to be around me. But I still had to deal with the fact that I still had to get up, struggle through my morning routine to get to school. And then by the time I get to school, I'm already drained. And I still got to deal with classes, barely focusing. And I did not have anybody to talk to at school when there was a peer support group, so that's why I believe the peer support group should.
Honorable Member, you have 2 minutes remaining. Please wrap up. Thank you.
And the peer support group should really be implemented in every school. I heard, and I was told that the peer support groups are offered, the peer support groups are at some schools, but not every school. But what if there was a time where a student, Madam Speaker, is just battling something, and they don't have anybody to talk to. They don't really want to go to the guidance counselor because they might think that the guidance counselor is whatever the case may be. But, Madam Speaker, the peer support group will be there to offer
empathy, and to try to help along, try to guide along the way the students that are struggling with these mental health, dealing with the mental health issues, Madam Speaker.
Honorable member, at what point do you rise?
Madam Speaker, I rise on a point of order. This fellow government member is misleading the House. In fact, the last 3 of them misled this House. I don't want to call them liars, but they haven't seen the truth in a long time. Madam Speaker, peer support groups among primary schools. Madam Speaker, annual reports. There are annual reports. And 7 psychologists, please ask the members to bring facts and stop misleading Barbados that's watching.
But, Madam Speaker, I can only speak about what I know, because within my school, the peer support group is not there. It is not there. So how do you expect a student to come and talk to someone about what is going on? It is not within my school. So how is this?
Honorable member, your time is up.
Not proper. Madam Speaker, I oblige.
Thank you. I now recognize the honorable member, Nathan Simpson.
Good morning to you, Madam Speaker, and the members of the House. First, I wish to start by saying that mental health is not a destination, but it is a process. It's about how you drive and not where you're going. Madam Speaker, I sat and I heard the contributions from the members on that side. Thank you. And some of the members on this side as well. And it is clear to me that some of them are delusional, because some of that side, they stood up and tried to, as the opposition leader said, they haven't seen the truth in a long time. And it puzzles me, because a topic as important as mental health, it annoys me that we are not understanding the importance of a topic as serious and important as this. Madam Speaker, I would like to shift the attention of the House to the resolution which the government brought. First of all, I must thank you for at least bringing something. It may not be anything, but thank you for bringing something. I can't agree with certain parts of the resolution, but I have a few questions which I would like to be answered, because I cannot agree that this peer group is the right way to go. I think it is too much pressure putting on your fellow peers. How can you tell me that you're going to put a 7-year-old child to counsel? That is not realistic. I think that is, first of all, that is wrong and inhumane. How can you do that? You're adding added pressure to children that age. That is not something that I can agree with. And I would ask that the government go back and look at that. That is not a wise move. It is irresponsible. That is the job of a guidance counselor. What should be being done is that guidance counselor should be properly trained to do that, not somebody's child. That is irresponsible. And for government to bring that, it shows to me that they are playing the fool with this. That they're not serious about this. But I'll leave that there for now. I think somebody else will address that. As the member went before on this side, she briefly spoke about the the point F that they have here about establishing more adult daycare, while I can agree with that, I question that, because are there adequate persons trained enough to take care of these older persons? Because we all know how older persons are. We all know you have to have a certain level of a certain level of care and dealing with them. We know that.
Honorable member, you have 2 minutes remaining.
Thank you very much. We know that sometimes that they're not the easiest to deal with. So my thing about that is, are we going to deploy the resources to get this done? Because evidence is showing that there is more patients than there are staff. So I just want the government to look at that before thing. Really quickly, Madam Speaker, I know my time is coming to a fast end. I would really like us to look at, as I mentioned, our schools. We spoke here about different stakeholders. We mentioned our peer groups as well. But in our schools, as I said, our teachers are a vital part of this. Our teachers do have to deal with these issues every single day, and there is nothing that is being done to support them in it. So I wish to urge and implore that we have a look at that, because our teachers are also, their mental health matters.
Honorable member, your time is up.
Thank you. They are very important to this society, and I would like to thank you for your time, ma'am. Thank you for giving me a little extra time over. Thank you.
Before we continue, I would like to acknowledge Mr. Tristan Ward, UNICEF representative, and Mr. Ryan Mosley, YES manager. Thank you for your time. Continuing, I recognize the Honorable Member Trinity Weeks.
Madam Speaker, Honorable Member, specially invited guests, good morning. On December 2nd, 1993, a man was shot in the head attempting to flee from his hometown. Global headlines would speak of his death for months. His hometown was known as one of the most dangerous cities on earth. But recently, this city has been transformed. By the help of green spaces, like Green Corridor projects, this city was able to better urban lifestyle, better climate change conditions, contribute to employment, and most importantly, the mental well-being of others. This project, which brings multiple benefits to the city, is a clear example on how nature can not only solve problems when it comes to climate change, but also mental health. This city isn't a make-believe city. This city is Medellin. Medellin, Colombia is proof of what green spaces can do and provide for our society. Madam Speaker, I agree with this resolution. The opposition may say how, but today I'm here to say it's as simple as touching grass. When I say touching grass, I mean how we use our natural resources as remedies for mental illnesses. The effects of COVID-19. COVID-19 drastically affected the way we live. We had to be isolated. It was like we were in a prison, and it was like we were confined in a prison, and we were not able to go out. Outside activity was cut short. Stated research in the World Health Organization mental health policy that introduced measures such as quarantine and isolation, elevated levels of loneliness, depression, harmful substance use, self-harm, and suicidal behavior can be expected, adding to already substantial burnout of mental health. How do we replenish ourselves? How do we rebuild? Let's talk about community. No man is an island, no man is alone. Humans need community. Without a community, people feel more isolated. We already established major and minor parks, which are also a type of green space, but we need more of those parks in every community. talk about the promotion. We must further promote green spaces through public awareness campaigns. We must make these green spaces worth looking at, worth enjoyable. Let's look at physical health. As it states, health is wealth. Not true. Health, our actual health, actually contributes to our mental health. Physical activity in green spaces have been defined as green exercise. These green spaces can be used to help promote recreational initiatives. Some of these solutions are an annual parish sport where each community come together with their own athletes and come out and have a good competitive fun, which will also conduct a food nutrition segment, sports therapy, and sports like swimming, cross-country, basketball, volleyball, and much more. Let's talk about how green spaces help and their benefit. Overall exposure to green spaces help tend to the beneficial effects on stress and mood, and in general population. Individuals have less mental distress, less anxiety and depression, get greater well-being when living in urban areas with more green spaces compared to those in less green spaces. Let's talk about green spaces that are our very own. Acknowledging our own green spaces like botanical gardens, or what I like to call Barbados National Park. It has been a hotspot for social gatherings when it comes to picnics, sports, popular events, and much more. Let's talk about job opportunities, because I heard that there was something said from one of the opposition members when they were like, how green spaces can help promote job opportunities for many. The beautification and maintenance of these spaces require persons to help with their upkeep, and also it can help profit our agriculture. We are a country who is on the verge of going green. Green spaces can help promote the reduction of hot temperatures that be killing us most Bajans daily and help to reduce air pollution.
Honorable member, you have 1 minute remaining.
Yes, please, I'm wrapping up. Madam Speaker, we have the opportunity to chart a new course. We have the opportunity to start a new harvest. We have the opportunity to start on better conditions. The time for finger pointing and political pot shots are over. We all have a role to play to ensure our people have a good quality means of improving their mental health. So I say today, I hope that you all can agree that we need green spaces more. We need more green spaces. And with that, I oblige.
I now recognize the honorable member, Abigail Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, today we have come to discuss a topic in our society that surpasses the confines of a government and opposition, that extends beyond the borders and the territories of Barbados, and it is one which surrounds mental health. According to the WHO in 2019, which is pre-COVID, they estimated that 1 in every 8 persons were living with a mental disorder. And to put this into perspective, that is 976 million individuals. And if you want to look at young people, UNICEF stated in that same year that 1 in 7 young persons or adolescents, so persons between the ages of 10 and 19, were also living with a mental illness. And we can bring things a bit closer to home. In a systematic review and meta-analysis of the prevalence of mental health and behavior problems in the English-speaking Caribbean, it was found that between 1 in 4 and 1 in 5 adolescents experience symptoms of mental health problems. And these are alarming statistics. And just looking at it as an individual, you could eyeball it and see that Barbados has a higher prevalence of mental illness. So it begs for us to ask the question, what are we going to do about it? And if enough was being done, we would not be having this conversation now. Madam Speaker, we have a popular saying in Barbados, you can take the horse to the water, but you can't make it drink. And so then the question arises, how do we not just make mental health accessible, but how do we make persons want to access it? How do we remove the embarrassment of having a mental illness? How do we portray to society that you were not too young to be depressed? You are not hearing voices because you are demon-possessed, and you are not less than because you are suffering from a mental illness. In other words, or as the resolution would state, how do we destigmatize mental health? And the government has mentioned that they would like to destigmatize mental health, and they have not given any concrete solution or any statements of how they intend to do so. But I will. And in order for us to do that, Madam President, we first need to understand what mental health is. Mental health needs to be something that is spoken about in our schools, in our communities, with our primary care physicians, amongst our friends. Madam Speaker, we have a large amount of resources that we can use to spread the message, whether it be social media, whether it be CBC, as was mentioned previously, whether it be radio programs or flyers, because we understand that this is a problem that it does not care how old you are, it does not care who you are, and we have to reach each generation, and that's our intention. So continuing along that line, Madam Speaker, when it is that we understand what it is and we can speak about it, the next is to know the signs, because if you don't know the signs, then you don't know what to look for in yourself and even in others. And global and regional statistics have pointed out that depression and anxiety are the most common, so those are where we should start with, because common things are common. And it is with the understanding that a depressed mood doesn't constitute the diagnosis of a depressive syndrome. Understanding that depressive syndrome may come along with symptoms of suicidal ideation, a change in your appetite. You may speak slow like I am, or you may even speak faster, and persons may note that. But understanding that each of these things can occur, because if you can't recognize something, why would you seek help? And those are the things that we need to do, and that is not what I'm hearing the government state, Madam Speaker. The next thing that we also need to include would be conversations surrounding suicide and self-harm, especially the correlation as it relates to alcohol and substance abuse. We recognize that many of the cases of suicide, there is a correlation between alcohol consumption, Madam Speaker, and what do we intend to do about that? And
Honourable Member, you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In the interest of time, I'll try to move a bit faster. The next thing that I'd like to touch on, Madam Speaker, is the point of the resolution which speaks towards where the government states they like to create incentives for psychiatry students. And Madam Speaker, I ask the question, is it really a problem with interest? If the Doctorate of Medicine and Psychiatry has a set amount of positions, regardless of how many persons are interested, if you have a set amount of persons, that set amount will graduate. So where is it? What does it have to do with interest, Madam Speaker? And we look at the Mental Health Atlas for 2020, which pointed out that we had 20 non-governmental and governmental psychiatrists. It also pointed out the 4 psychologists that were had. And Madam Speaker, that is what we need to incentivize.
Honourable Member, your time is up.
Madam Speaker, may I have 1 minute to conclude?
A fast 1 minute, please.
Pardon?
A fast 1 minute.
Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, in conclusion, the conversation today that is being had is not addressing the root problem. The seeds of distrust and mistrust and even are sown deep in the Barbadian society, and mental health, in essence, has become somewhat of a provocative term, with persons knowing that this is something that can happen, but it can't happen to me. And Madam Speaker, that is what we need to address. The stigma against HIV was not fought with jingles, Madam Speaker. It was fought with action that took time, and that is what we need to put in. And in conclusion, Madam Speaker, in the words of Matthew High, mental health problems don't define who you are. They are something you experience. You walk in the rain, you feel the rain, but you are not the rain. I am obliged.
I now recognize the Honourable Member Janica King.
Madam Speaker, honorable members, good morning. We, the government, are not going to allow the persons charged with taking care of the patients, those which suffer with mental illnesses, to end up becoming victims of those same illnesses because they lack mental days and they lack insurance for when they become injured because they're not taken care of properly. As Barbadians, we need them to be at the top of their game. We need, when it comes to medicine, working environments, and most importantly, different forms of therapy. We cannot afford to have the ratio of psychiatrists to patients this low. It cannot be this bad. It cannot. How can we expect these psychiatrists and social workers to do an effective job when they're not supplied with the right technology, top of the line medication, and not the correct working environment? How do we solve this problem? The government has been encouraging students to go into the mental health care field. We offer scholarships, but it only pertains to autism. We plan to change this. We plan to offer scholarships over a wide area of psychiatry, because psychiatry can go into many different fields. By doing this, it will stop the short staff, it will stop our healthcare workers from being stretched thin among the wards. We visited the psychiatric hospital, and we saw that they are stretched thin. Many of the workers are overworked, and some may say they do not have the proper technology. The government believes that producing specialists right here in Barbados who are taught how to treat and help persons manage their health care before it starts to deteriorate will help. I ask that we will look at this differently. Not what's wrong with the psychiatric hospital, but
Honorable member, you have 2 minutes remaining.
Thank
Please
you.
wrap up. Thank
But
you.
how do we lessen the amount of people that are entering there? How do we stop our young persons from going in there so fast? How do we prevent it? Before I close up, I would like to emphasize that although we are government and opposition, we work together towards the betterment of the people of Barbados. And I can proudly say that this resolution represented by the government is the best thing for the people of Barbados. Yes, we are open to your suggestions. We are not closed-minded, but right now, it is the best thing. I oblige.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that this sitting be suspended for 15 minutes.
Madam Speaker, I beg to second that.
The question is for this seating to be suspended for 15 minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against say nay. The ayes have it. The session is suspended for 15 minutes. Thank you.
1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. Yeah. 1, 2. Lower. Lower. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. Testing. 1, 2. 1, 2.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Permit me, Madam Speaker, to start by saying, sorrows, sorrows, peers. Madam Speaker, it is sad, a sad, sad, sad day for this nation. My heart is grieving, Madam Speaker, but let me start by addressing the elephant in the house, the epidemic of mental ill health in this nation. Madam Speaker, my honorable members on the other side of this aisle clearly have never been impacted by such instances of mental ill health, but only brought a resolution, Madam Speaker, reflective of mental health. Madam Speaker, we need to really look at the concept of mental health and mental ill health. Several of the resolutions presented here today look at mental health, but don't look at the rehabilitative process of bringing persons who have already reached the stage of breaking back into society. And I would like to bring a quote to you, Madam Speaker, from Henrietta Ford, Executive Director of UNICEF, who states, "Too many children and young people, rich and poor alike, in all four corners of the world are experiencing mental ill health, and we have never seen before. This is the silent emergency of our times and has no borders or requires urgent attention." End of quote. According to UNICEF, for every child in November 2019, and I quote, up to 20% of adolescents globally experience mental disorders. 3 out of 4 adult mental health problems begin during childhood and adolescence, and an alarming proportion of adolescents, 5 to 10%, and in some cases in other countries, 15%, and low and middle income countries attempt suicide. Now, Madam Speaker, my colleagues that spoke before me, especially the leader of opposition, brought up the concept of suicides in this country. And Madam Speaker, it pains me to know that a young man in this country who I attended school with was a fortunate victim of that such instance as well. And Madam Speaker, we need to recognize that suicide prevention is something that is important and of paramount importance in this country. This team of individuals who come to form themselves as a government in the name of the young people of this country have clearly lacked the intelligent wit to go and do their necessary research to bring a substantive resolution to this House. Because, Madam Speaker, for the past 3 years, the Caribbean young people have been coming together to put together a call of action with 4 main calls, led by young people of Barbados in the movement of Let's Unpack It, led by Dr. David Johnson in the making. God will decree and declare that he will get his doctorate, and Chelsea Jordan. These young people, Madam Speaker, had foresight, had vision, had, as the good song frequently spoke about, being really populist, social communautarized.
Honorable member, you have 2 minutes remaining.
But before this pandemic struck, causing these twisting and tossing and causing several anxieties among young people in this country, where you couldn't go outside, social distancing, everybody shutting up tight, distancing in the households even from your fellow man. Mothers can't communicate with children. Fathers can't communicate with wives. These were the breakdowns that we were seeing in households across the country. But what were these calls to action, Madam Speaker? The call number 1 went on to say leadership to prioritize the integration of mental health into existing health policies and emergency plans to ensure that youth are meaningfully engaged in policy development, Madam Speaker. Call number 2 Went on to speak about research. And as I said, Madam Speaker, those on the other side do not know this word research. To inform mental health programs and policies. It is no way you can stand in this resolution at Coming G and talk about the promotion of already existing mental health initiatives, but still several members on the other side cannot get up and name a single one, because you know what, Madam Speaker, it shows me they do not know any. Call number 3 goes in to discuss the regulations and policies to protect children and youth from health-harming products, harassment, stigma, and discrimination. Stigma and discrimination is the one thing that I can stand behind of this resolution, as we're seeking to change the mindsets of Barbadians towards this concept of mental health and being able to support one another along this journey. Because I was always told that you're only as strong as your weakest link. And call number 4 went on to speak about services to support the mental health and well-being of children and youth across the Caribbean. Madam Speaker, while we are debating in our house here in Barbados,
Honorable Member, your time is up.
it would be remiss of me, just a couple more minutes to wrap up, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much.
A couple more minutes, I'll give you 30 seconds.
Yes, please, Madam Speaker. It would be remiss of me, Madam Speaker, to say that this mental health situation is just an epidemic in Barbados, but it's an epidemic throughout the Caribbean. And it's important that as young people we come together and band together to fight for the legislative authorities to fix and urgently take swift action the same way how we thought it necessary to establish the Barbados Family Planning Association. Madam Speaker, I do oblige.
I now recognize the Honorable Member Janika King. Apologies. I now recognize the Honorable Member Raymond Small.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good afternoon to all honorable members of the House. From all of the previous speeches that members of the House would have contributed, you can understand how important this topic is for us. Now, I am especially glad to be here today because I feel as though I can finally express my views on this topic, mental health. This is a topic that I've always, well, for the last few years, I took an interest in because during the COVID pandemic, I noticed a lot of my friends and families I noticed these moods and behavioral changes, and I understood that the pandemic impacted everyone significantly, but curiosity led me to research how it mentally affected us. Mental health challenges can affect anyone, young or old, rich or poor. And as a young man, today I want to express my concerns for the elderly people of Barbados. It goes without saying that the elderly people have the most experience in life. And this means that they would have gone through the ups and downs, and in most cases, worked almost their whole lives. And I know life is not easy. Between working every day, trying hard to make ends meet, having a child or children that you have to take care of, and along the lines, losing friends and family members, not to mention the financial struggles, it is hard. Life is hard generally. Now imagine experiencing these struggles for 40, 50, 60 years. And this is why I consider, or I see the elderly people as heroes. Because while most of them might not have fought in wars, they did have to battle the struggles of life. And they are still going. They are still going. Now, I love and respect all senior citizens. I have a grandmother who helped raise me into the young man that I am today.
Honorable member, you have 2 minutes remaining.
Thank you. And for that, I am forever grateful. And that is why I am here today, Madam Speaker, to shed light on point F in this resolution. We need to provide our senior citizens with more daycare facilities. We cannot forget about our senior citizens who live alone, the ones that have no one to share a laugh with or have a chat with about maybe the old days, and the ones with disabilities, no assistance with cooking and cleaning, and are constantly feeling alone in the household. Now, loneliness.
Honorable member, your time is up.
I would like to ask for just at least 30 more seconds or a minute to finish up and conclude.
30
Madam
seconds.
Speaker. Madam Speaker, with the establishment of more adult daycares, we can provide more of our senior citizens safe, supportive communities and comforting social environments. Thank you. And with that, I oblige.
I now recognize the honorable member, Kaylan Aline.
In Barbados, there's a serious psychologist shortage. Our psychiatric hospital, there are 3 clinical nurses having to see 70+ patients in one day, having to take a break, have lunch, properly complete their job, and be able to breathe through all of this. How are we saying that we're injecting this 10% into the psychiatric hospital? Sorry, Madam Speaker. Good morning, Madam Speaker. How are we saying that we're injecting this 10% into the psychiatric hospital and saying that it's not enough? Maybe if this government focused on the real issues, the overwork, the underpaid, the undertrained persons within said institution, instead of focusing on building a new building every time an older one begins to run down. Focus on that one nurse who is going home too tired to do anything for their child, having to struggle at the end of every month because the cost of living in Barbados is too high. Focus on that one psychology major student who wants to come back home but they do not have the opportunity to do so. Also, how are we sending members of the Barbados Police Service to collect persons who have been mandated by the court to have an assessment at a psychiatric hospital? Many persons within the BPS have the most basic training possible on how to deal with persons suffering with mental illnesses. And for the persons on the government side who decide to hide behind being labeled as the 3rd ranked at the recent SIDS conference, for the most 3rd rank in the most mental health resources within the Caribbean, shame on you. In closing, mental health is a problem that basically everyone has suffered with at some point in time. And as Matt High said, mental health problems don't define who you are. They are something you experience. You walk in the rain and you feel the rain, but you are not the rain. Madam Speaker, I oblige.
I now recognize the honorable member, Tyrell Payne.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for your acknowledgement. Madam Speaker, I wish to begin my speech by emphasizing the point that no one should ever feel ashamed to talk about their mental health. And this is not the case in many situations. Madam Speaker, July 7th, July 21st, August 3rd, 2022, 3 days, 2 weeks apart from each other, in this Barbados, and this hurts me deeply to say this, in our Barbados, we lost 3 men to suicide. Madam Speaker, now more than ever, we're hearing more conversations about men and their mental health. And we understand that there is a fundamental issue that we need to address. Madam Speaker, mental health issues in men are caused by a number of issues, from family-related issues, financial stressors, and even the onset of physical illnesses. Madam Speaker, however, the issue comes when men suppress their emotions and they don't feel comfortable enough to speak out about their mental health issues and about the issues that they're facing. Because, Madam Speaker, of the stigma attached to it, society's expectations, and traditional gender roles. Madam Speaker, studies done all across the globe show that more significant proportion of females report common mental health issues when compared to men. In addition to that, Madam Speaker, these results show that men are more reluctant to seek help and to talk about their mental health challenges. I go on. A sex comparison study done in Canada, Madam Speaker, showed a great portion of male respondents compared to the female respondents that they would be embarrassed to seek help for their mental health challenges. Such results, Madam Speaker, would indicate to us that the stigma, whether self-stigma or societal stigma, contributes heavily to the way men see their mental health, to their mentality towards mental health. And such, this leads to trends where we see mental health illnesses are highly untreated in men. Madam Speaker, this stigma stems from centuries ago, where men were supposed to be the head of the household and the breadwinners, and they were supposed to be dominant and strong. And a sign of weakness, and an issue with their mental health would be a sign of weakness.
Honorable member, you have 2 minutes remaining.
Yes. As I proceed swiftly, Madam Speaker, the impact of untreated mental health in men is what is damaging our society today. Our society suffers on a whole as a result. These men turn to harmful methods to cope with their mental health, from substance abuse to personality changes, which they become more aggressive or agitated, and then lead to child abuse and spousal abuse in the house. Additionally, they may develop the onset of depression and anxiety, and then leading to attempts and thoughts of suicide. Madam Speaker, as I move on quickly, the government, we know our shortcomings, we know our deficits, and we are here to correct them. Our solutions are to recommend the design and implementation of more male-tailored, innovative, and creative initiatives that would improve the way men view their mental health. Additionally, we also want to promote the active organizations and initiatives that are already in place, some such as the Let's Unpack It that they mentioned highly today, You Report Barbados, the Supreme Council for Personal Development, and the Men Empowerment Network support. Madam Speaker, in addition to that, we also seek to establish more safe spaces for men to create, collaborate, share, and support each other in a non-judgmental, stigma-free environment. As I conclude, Madam Speaker, with the understanding that men's mental health is just as important, as well as the trend where the global male suicide rate continues to rise, it is important that we acknowledge and prioritize men's mental health. The research and the literature presented is clear. Work needs to be done. As I would have stated earlier, we know our deficits and we've come to correct them. The first step is by seeking to end the negative stigma attached to men's mental health. That way, men become more comfortable expressing themselves in a healthy and sustainable way. In conclusion, together, let us build a space where we all feel safe talking about and sharing about our mental health challenges. The goal is mapped out. We must do our part to ensure the public is educated, and thus more awareness is brought. The more awareness is brought, the closer we get to the light at the end of the tunnel. Madam Speaker, I am obliged to you.
I recognize the Honorable Brianna Hardy.
Madam Speaker, honorable members, today I come to speak to you about a topic that's very near and dear to me, as I myself have suffered with mental issues, mental health illnesses for many years. I've seen friends and family members, and I'm sure we can all take just one moment to think of one person impacted by a mental illness. Now, if every single one of us can think of one person, and I know we can, we should know how important mental health issues are in Barbados. This is why the issues of Barbados' limited mental health resources means it can't tackle the rising number of mental illnesses. It can't tackle the risk of poor mental health to the country's development and the other negatives accompanied by the resources. Thus, it is of utmost importance that we address these issues, that we put in place the necessary policies to ensure the stability of Barbados' mental health sector. Now, did the government read the Caribbean Youth Mental Health Call to Action? I mean, I heard all of us mention Let's Unpack It, but I'm reading the resolution, and where are the proposals targeting research? Where is the integration of mental health in already existing health policies? I mean, yes, mental health in its own right, in its own merit, can stand alone, but without that key word, health, it's just mental. No, how are we protecting the youth from harassment, stigma, and discrimination with these proposals? Now, Section E of the resolution brought by the government proposes the creation of more incentives for students studying psychiatry to improve psychiatrist-to-patient ratio. Now, in theory, this sounds like a brilliant solution to a large problem in the mental health sector, as the ideal minimum ratio, according to the American Psychiatrists Association, is 10 psychiatrists to 100,000 patients. And as of 2007, Barbados has 4 psychiatrists to 100,000 patients. Now, Madam Speaker, we are more than 50% below the bare minimum, Madam Speaker. Now, from a financial standpoint, it's not as simple as just putting in place more initiatives to get people in the psychiatry sector.
Honorable member, you have 2 minutes remaining.
I'll land the plane, Madam Speaker. To put it into perspective, say the government decides to allocate what money? The money from the education sector that would take away from the subsidized education from others, or would they take the money that we've allocated 10% to mental health, which, by the way, as of the 2022 Atlas, 100% of this 10% goes toward the psychiatric hospital, which, by the way, is struggling with this thing. So how are we allocating these funds? How are we paying for these policies and projects? How are we getting this done? I find the government has overlooked an integral aspect of mental health policies, finances, and it's disheartening, honestly. Now, as a country saddled with $7.19 billion in US debt, it's integral that we take into account how are we going to equitably allocate these finances? How are we going to ensure that everyone has equal access to education, to mental health resources? How are we going to do this with these policies that were presented today? We must do better with budget distribution. In closing, I urge the government to consider the reallocation of the finances, to look into the youth mental health call to action from the LUI that we of course, we stated, and to implement the pertinent policies needed to ensure stability.
Your time is up.
Madam Speaker, if I may, 30 more seconds to finish up. To implement the pertinent policies needed to ensure the stability of mental health sector. As policymakers, it is our duty to ensure the mental health of our citizens. Ignoring or implementing insufficient strategies will do nothing but a great disservice to our country and our moral obligation. In light of these arguments, I urge my esteemed colleagues to prioritize the development of mental health policies in Barbados. Madam Speaker, time for action is now. Let us be remembered as the leaders who recognize the importance and urgency of mental health issues and took necessary steps to address it. Madam Speaker, I'm obliged to you.
I now recognize the honorable member Kayshawn Waldron.
Madam Speaker, distinguished guests, honorable members. Imagine a world where silent struggles hide behind masks of false smiles. Imagine a world where anxiety, depression, and eating disorders haunt youth, thus shackling dreams and aspirations. Unfortunately, there is no need to imagine. When exposed to high-pressure environments or extreme stressors such as societal pressure or perfectionism, oftentimes the drug of choice is comfort food. And we have seen the impact that this has had in Barbados. In 2022, the World Health Organization would have published an NCD progress report that stated, listen closely, 83% of preventable deaths in Barbados have been linked to NCDs. And while changing eating habits is one of the steps to combat NCDs, we now need to take a deeper look. We must now address the smoldering ember of devastation. We must now address the topic which is overshadowing why we do damage to our bodies. We must now address the decline of mental health and wellness in our nation. With the time that I am granted, I will discuss the rationale for the reformation of the Mental Health Act. So, we need to understand what is the problem. What is a modern Barbados? The last time the Mental Health Act was amended was in 1998. It has been 2 decades since then, and therefore there have been a number of natural, economic, and health disasters. And mental health is an important indicator of a society's overall well-being. In 2021, Barbados was subject to a research study titled Mental Health and COVID-19 Perceptions in the East Caribbean. And this study revealed that respondents generally experience mild social dysfunction. However, and more alarmingly, they suffered from severe anxiety and insomnia. Of the 500 respondents that were interviewed, listen closely, only 38% were in a healthy range of depression. They had a minimum level of depression. And only 16% showed minimum levels of anxiety and insomnia. Participants expressed feelings of fear and anxiety due to the pandemic and the associated stressors. And this is a problem because it causes impaired relationships, reduced economic income, and a continued strain on health services. So the solution is this. We need to shape the Mental Health Act to address the needs of a modern Barbados. And this calls for the inclusion of community-based care. Community-based care would enhance access to health services since persons will...
Honorable member, you have 2 minutes remaining.
Thank you. Community-based cares would enhance the access to health services since persons will no longer be constricted to only seeking mental health in an institution. This approach also assists in the promotion of integration and reduces stigma through awareness. And lastly, it would be a cost-effective method also aimed at reducing the strain that is placed on the psychiatrist-to-patient ratio. In wrapping up, while an administration body is key to getting these things done, it is important that we understand that in order to have any type of transformation, the community is key. We need to embrace and support these changes. We need to champion young health. We need to champion mental health as an integral part of overall well-being. Madam Speaker, I am obliged.
I now recognize the Honorable Abby Tanis.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Speaker, honorable members, specially invited guests. Now, as we know, the topic for this debate is mental health. What is mental health? Mental health is defined by the World Health Organization as a state of mental well-being that enables people to cope with the stresses of life, realize their abilities, learn well, and work well, and contribute to their community. Now I would like to read for an extract of statistics from the Barbados Global School-Based Student Health Survey 2011. It says most adolescents have good mental health. However, physical, emotional, and social changes that occur during adolescence, coupled with exposure to poverty, physical and/or sexual violence, harsh parenting, and peer bullying can make adolescents vulnerable to mental health problems. Other risk factors that contribute to stress during adolescence include the quality of one's home life, relationships with peers, pressure to conform to peers, exploration of sexual and/or gender identity, and the negative impacts of social media. Some adolescents are subject to stigmatization, discrimination, and exclusion, and lack of access to quality support and mental health services. Parental and peer relationships are very important to adolescent mental health. Teenagers with friendship and close ties to their parents and guardians tend to be more adaptive to stress, report being happier due to increased feeling of uniqueness, and are likely to do better academically. In addition, they tend to have higher self-esteem and higher self-confidence and may be more assertive. In Barbados, only 6% of adolescents ages 13 to 15 reported that they have no close friends. And at the same time, only 30% of adolescents had parents and guardians who understood their problems and worries, and only 38% had parents and guardians who knew what they were doing in their free time. The glaring omission of this resolution is the failing identity to the root cause of mental health in the first place. Where in this resolution does it speak to supporting and understanding the importance of a positive adult role model in an adolescent's life? Where in this resolution does it speak to the importance of poverty or mental health, not just in the youth, but in adults as well? Where in this resolution does it speak to the importance of physical and/or sexual violence in adolescents, in our adolescents? And where in this resolution does it speak to the harsh parenting and peer bullying that can make our young people vulnerable to mental health problems? So is the government suggesting that by omission from this resolution that these issues are so unimportant that they do not deserve their own focus in this resolution? Keep in mind that they said, and I quote, that the BNYP, in the name of the people of Barbados, and in particular the young people, supports and advocates for the holistic treatment and destigmatization of mental health and the prioritization of mental health. So I am happy that the government has recognized the need to attempt to highlight the issue of mental health reform, and I am elated that the government
Honorable member, you have 2 minutes remaining.
Thank you. And I'm elated to see that the government sees that peer support is the only solution that needs to be addressed in youth. However, I repeat the call for a research-based approach to policy solutions, and it is fine to say that, okay, we need peer support in our youth, but that is only okay after they have reached a certain age. But all the studies on mental health show that by the time children are in their environment to receive peer pressure report, they're already suffering from some type of mental illness.
Your time is up.
Okay. Can I have the... In closing, Madam Speaker, I think I can speak for my colleagues when I say that we are in agreement with the motion that mental health needs to be prioritized, and that we are in a mental health crisis. And it's only because the opposition cares so deeply about this topic is why I personally do not support this resolution. It is not because I do not think that mental health is not important, but I think it is because it is too important to honestly take this resolution seriously.
Your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. I now recognize the Honorable Member Lashante Sobers.
Madam Speaker, honorable members, good morning. In the words of American physician John Galt, Blacks are immune to mental illness. This invidious statement reflects a society that thrived on Black suffrage and disregarded the emphasis on mental needs. If there was ever any truth to this statement, it would mean that I, a descendant of African slaves, you, Madam Speaker, and you, my honorable members, would never have to encounter mental health or illness issues. No, mental health is not discriminatory. It is not gender specific. Anyone from any walk of life can experience it, and it carries dire consequences. But what exactly is mental health? The World Health Organization defines mental health as, and I quote, a state of mental well-being that enables people to cope with the stresses of life, realize their abilities, learn well and work well, and contribute to their community. Another study conducted by the World Health Organization stated that globally, 1 in 7 persons aged 10 to 19 years old experience mental disorders, and suicide is the 4th leading cause of death among 15 to 29-year-olds. This is why mental health advocacy is important, as knowledgeable minds can come together to combat this growing issue. This is why this government, through this resolution, would act as a vessel to ensure that Barbadians suffering from mental health issues are catered to and cared for. The National Alliance on Mental Health states that 1 in 5 young people under 18 experience mental health. Right. But many young people are scared to speak up about it due to societal feedback. This is evident in Barbados because many persons look at the psychiatric hospital through a very pessimistic lens. Because of this, they discriminate against those who have been admitted or who are currently admitted to hospital. They label them as mad or stupid. They don't see them as human. They see them as outcasts. And because of this, they fear them. It is time this comes to an end. It is time to put an end to this stigma. Right. The Barbados Psychiatric Hospital reports
Honorable member,
that
you have 2 minutes remaining.
Okay. That the majority of patients admitted to hospital suffer from bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, or post-traumatic syndrome disorder. However, younger patients from as early as 7 years old usually experience behavioral disorders such as OCD or ADHD. The Barbados Psychiatric Hospital does a great job at giving these children the best care that they need. However, there are little psychiatrists available, which is why the government chooses to award scholarships to students studying psychiatry to aid them with their studies. These scholarships would allow for economic assistance with the universities that they're accepted to, and in the terms of their scholarship, they would have to return to Barbados to work in a mental health institution in order to assist with national development and to increase the psychiatrist to patient ratio.
Honorable member, your time is up.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, I oblige to you.
I now recognize the honorable member, Joshua Harris.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker and honorable members of this House. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Words from the late, great Bob Marley. Madam Speaker, my question is, how do we do that? How do we free our minds? Madam Speaker, I'd like to argue that the people of Barbados need resources. And this resolution is inadequate as it does not address the lack of resources available to Barbadians. And before an honorable member from the
other side of the floor points to green spaces. Let me remind them that Barbados is 432 square kilometers and has a population density of 655.8 people per square kilometer. Therefore, Madam Speaker, since the government would like to erect green spaces, let me then urge them not to contradict themselves by trying to take up more space by erecting a slew of senior daycare centers. Let me also remind them that we also have 15 parks in Barbados, including the botanical gardens, and therefore, on average, we have more than one in each parish. So I'd like to urge the honourable members to not take away from the parish independence committees at all in this honourable house. Madam Speaker, since the government would like to utilize space, I urge them to use it wisely. I urge them to use it by implementing something that will make a difference. Use it to implement something that is necessary. Use it to implement community mental health centers, community mental health outposts that will reduce the pressure on the psychiatric hospital. Use it to build more halfway houses that will assist greatly in easier reintegration from our citizens coming out of the psychiatric hospital. We know it is difficult for them. We must help them, Madam Speaker. They said in this resolution they're taking a holistic approach and they want to destigmatize mental health. I commend that. However, Madam Speaker, this is a blanket statement, and they will use it as cover to when we call upon them and call them out on their shortcomings. Madam Speaker, let me get to the specifics and advocate for the minorities in this country. Let me speak to the advocation of destigmatization of disability, which the government neglected in this bill. The fact of the matter is, many of our senior citizens suffer with depression, and many of our disabled citizens suffer with depression also due to the stigma against them. Also, let me point to the retired law enforcement and military individuals, Madam Speaker. Let me point to them.
Honourable member, you have 2 minutes remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Of whom 19%, one in five, suffer from PTSD. We must make it easier for them to receive treatment, and dare I say, free of charge. Also, Madam Speaker, we need to sensitize our youth who show some measure of insensitivity when they post on social media. A study carried out by Dr. Sanjay Gupta showed a direct link between social media and the destruction of mental health in our youth, which social media causes severe depression in 7% of them, and anxiety disorder in 20% of them, Madam Speaker. As a youth parliament, we need to combat these things in this bill for it to be effective. I'd like also to ask them about the peer support groups. I want to know if your peers are supporting you, if you're prioritizing that and taking away from the tuition time of your fellow peers. That does not make sense, Madam Speaker. It doesn't make sense. But, Madam Speaker, I will end by using a variation of a quote from President John F. Kennedy in the United States. The cost of freedom is high, but Barbadians have always paid the price. Madam Speaker, it's time that we must make it cheaper for them. We must not take the path of surrender or submission. And actually close now by quoting our Prime Minister, the Honourable Mayor Moore Motley, by saying no retreat, no surrender. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I now acknowledge the Honorable Keneal Leslie.
Madam Speaker, honorable members. Madam Speaker, well, I agree with the notion that adult daycares should be redistributed across the country. But when we don't establish more, how do we fill the gap? St. Michael is the most populated parish on the island. When we move those adult daycares. How do we support the elderly there? According to research done by the World Health Organization, Barbados' elderly population is set to more than double, and there are not nearly enough services to support this demographic shift. Mental health and well-being are just as important in older age as at any other time of life. Approximately 15% of adults aged 60 and over suffer from mental disorders. Mental and neurological disorders among older adults account for 66% of the total disability for this group. Now, honorable member alluded to the finances. The cost of the services may be expensive. Undertaking the establishment of more facilities, such as adult daycares, can be out of budget. But to support our elderly.
Honorable member, on what point do you rise?
I rise on a point of order because clearly the honorable member on the other side has not listened to my solution. I said that they should conduct surveys so that you can know how to adequately relocate
member,
and...
That is not a point of order. Please sit down.
My bad.
Thank you.
My bad.
Okay.
You will receive a minute.
Thank you. Now, the finances. To support our elderly, it is worth every penny because the benefits of adult daycares are far too great. Mental stimulation, which respect for caregivers, socialization and companionship, supervision and safety, and access to healthcare and therapeutic services, which all serve as preventative measures. And it also moves the burden of the psychiatric hospital and pushes it into the community. Madam Speaker, another member, honorable member, asked, why only the old persons? Now I cannot answer that question because the government in the resolution has stated we address mental health holistically. So I answer why the old persons? And the honorable member has answered it in their own speech.
Honorable member, you have 2 minutes remaining.
Thank you. As the old persons would say, the Edos, in the old time days, ethics from the older generation. If we do not support the older generation and their mental well-being, how would we know of these things? In conclusion, the elderly, great-grandma, great-grandpa, great-auntie, great-uncle, your ever so nosy neighbor who has lived in the same old shadow house for what feels like forever, the custodians of tradition and the pillars of society. Provide them with the services they need and deserve so that they may live in bliss and age with grace. I oblige to you, Madam Speaker.
I now recognize the Honorable Dante Harvey.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I sat here for over the last 2+ hours, 3, being told, and listened to the members on the other side justify the unjustifiable. Madam Speaker, this is a problem, and I personally would have felt more inclined to listen to the other side if they have begun and say, we, the government, have failed our people. Madam Speaker, I can get to the point. Madam Speaker, we are talking about lack of mental health days.
I raised the point before in another setting. We have not urged or we have not deployed or asked for the Ministry of Labor, Social Security, and the third sector to be a part of this change. Madam Speaker, unemployment is one of the main causes of poverty in this country. Madam Speaker, cost of living being so high is one of the next forms of poverty in this country. Madam Speaker, the government has failed to outline or to task the following related grades or the following related people. Madam Speaker, the Christian Association of Barbados, the Evangelical Association of Barbados, the Muslim Association, the Interreligious Organization. We're talking about a lack of psychiatrists and psychologists in this country, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, to become a reverend or to become a senior member of the church, we have to study psychiatry. Madam Speaker, if we use our reverence and we move from the notion of separating church and state and bringing back church and state together to help move forward and to help this crisis of mental health in Barbados, we will be on the right trajectory. Madam Speaker, when I listen, I believe in another life I'm called to pastoral ministry, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, mental health is like the story of the sheep, the 99, and we must go back for the one, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, no one in the Bible was tested and tried more than Job, Madam Speaker, and Job had faith as small as a mustard seed in the man of God. Madam Speaker, I know we can't bring the notion of pelting back religious education back into our schools.
I'm
Madam
sorry
Speaker.
to say this, but you have 2 minutes remaining.
Madam Speaker, that's more than enough.
All right.
Madam Speaker, if we go back, we can't bring the notion of pelting back religious education among our youth because of the charters and stuff from UN, Madam Speaker. But if we include our reverends and our pastors in our communication on mental health, we will be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Madam Speaker, having faith as small as a mustard seed can do wonders to man, woman, child, boy, and girl. Madam Speaker, I can go on about the holy book of the Lord, but I will wrap up and say, Madam Speaker, in the words of a legend, Bob Marley, one love, one heart, let's get together, and it will be all right. Madam Speaker, I'm obliged to you.
I recognize the Honorable Janae Herbert.
Madam Speaker, good morning. Honorable members, good morning. In the words of writer and Holocaust survivor Elie Wiesel, the opposite of love is not hate, but much rather indifference. I will go further to say, Madam Speaker, that what we don't do, someone or something else will. Substances hold our women, our men, and our youth at large in a warm embrace because we refuse to. When we do not listen, Madam Speaker, marijuana will. Ecstasy has the empathy that we lack. Our families may not show love, but nicotine will, alcohol will, Molly will. These are concepts that run rampant among our people, that run rampant among our youth. This is our reality, Madam Speaker. This is why I urge not only policymakers, but teachers, parents, students. I urge Barbados to take mental health seriously. Honorable members, the opposite of love may be indifference, but I propose to this honorable chamber that a symptom of love is initiative. May I draw your attention to Section G of the resolution, which states, which speaks to the promotion of already present and active mental health initiatives, as well as the establishment of government-funded initiatives to target men's mental health and provide safe spaces. Now, it is no secret, Madam Speaker, that there's a stigma surrounding men's mental health. The American Psychological Association and Gate Counseling Organization project that men are 12% less likely to seek formal mental care. And at the same time, Madam Speaker, as the honorable member would have alluded to, men are 4 times as likely to die from suicide. Bearing this in mind, the government seeks to prioritize the implementation and enhancement of initiatives geared toward the destigmatization and support of mental health and men's mental health in particular. Among these initiatives are support groups, clubs, and informative campaigns. Additionally, Madam Speaker, the government seeks to provide jobs not only to treat mental illness, Madam Speaker, but as a tangible solution to preserve mental health. This section of the resolution also speaks to the creation of safe spaces.
Honorable member, you have 2 minutes remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Also speaks to the creation of safe spaces, Madam Speaker. Now, when our people end up as part of the 700,000 annual suicides, one of the first things heard is, no one knew he or she was suffering. No one could tell. If only we knew, Madam Speaker, which is why we need an outlet for our youth. We need to promote and enhance outlets for our youth to speak. The WHO projects that 1 in 5 individuals will be challenged with mental illness in their lifetime. To bring this a bit closer to home, Madam Speaker, there are about 35 individuals seated here today. That would mean that at least 7 of us are either already suffering from mental illness or will in our lifetime. Madam Speaker, I chose to bring this statistic close to home, Madam Speaker, because I think it is important that we recognize that there are real struggles behind statistics, and as the honorable member before me would have said, that there are faces that lie behind facts. Madam Speaker, prevention is better than cure. But in a situation such as this, where lives are at stake, where mothers, fathers, sons, daughters are being lost, prevention is our only option. A representative from the psychiatric hospital would have alluded to the fact that anyone with the ability to think, feel, or imagine has the capacity to develop a mental illness. What this means, Madam Speaker, honorable members, is that anyone can be subject to mental illness at any point in time.
Honorable member.
Thank you. That anyone may be subject to mental illness at any point in time. As I stand here in support of this resolution, I seek to remind you, honorable members, that this resolution is not only for the benefit of those already suffering with mental illness, but for the protection of each and every single Barbadian. And on that note, Madam Speaker, I'm very much appreciative.
I acknowledge and recognize the honorable member, Caleb Brathwaite.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise today on a topic that is important to every single person here, and to all residents who call this country home. More importantly, fellow young people. I not only rise as a youth parliamentarian, but as a youth and a community advocate, and who's also the chairman of the Belfast Youth Council. This mental health topic concerns all of you here, all of you. But today we are not here to serve self-agendas, but we are here to ensure that the over 60,000 young people we have in this country have representation on this mental health debate. After all, this is Youth Parliament. Madam Speaker, however, it pains me dearly to say that this resolution the other side has brought before this honorable House is a slap in the face to those over 60,000 young people we have in this country.
I go further to say, it has me so kerfuffled, so discombobulated, it is affecting my mental health now at this very moment. Madam Speaker, my honorable friends have defined mental health, so I need not to go down that road. But as there are many students among us in this honorable house, you are one yourself, Madam Speaker, and you are able to empathize when I say this. I thought the other side would have saw it necessary to introduce school-based programs for the purposes of educating students on mental health, with a separate and a distinct subject from HFLE, Health and Family Life Education, and must not be curriculum-based. But Madam Speaker, I didn't see that get right about here. Madam Speaker, however, what the other side thinks is best for young people is to implement peer counseling in schools. But you are implementing peer counseling in schools before you teach students about mental health. They are putting the cart before the horse. Madam Speaker, furthermore, where is the clause in this resolution speaking about increasing the singular guidance counselor we have in secondary schools today to at least 2 in each secondary school and 1 station guidance counselor in each primary school. In addition, I beg your pardon, the implementation of the needed behavior intervention plans for all schools across the island. But Madam Speaker, I didn't see that get right about here. Madam Speaker, there should have been a revenue generation mechanism included in this resolution, or the mention of diverting funding to fund these mental health programs, as mental health should be treated as a priority and the opposition recognizes that. It must be noted that mental health challenges are akin to non-communicable diseases for which this country is plagued with. But Madam Speaker, I go on, I didn't see it get right about here. Madam Speaker, let me take this time to commend every single person who works in the mental health system in Barbados. Your efforts shall no longer go unnoticed in this country. I wish to commend these hardworking professionals, from the ancillary staff to the security to the nursing assistants to the doctors. We commend you.
Remaining.
Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, just as you saw, the other side did not hit the desk to commend these hardworking professionals, but they will say, and they will stand up and say that they care about the mental health system. But if they truly cared, they will understand that the nurses located at the Troy Family Center, which is located in the psychiatric hospital, and which is the facility dedicated for helping children get over their mental health challenges, should not need to perform their duties and still struggle to assist with rigorous schoolwork. For various age groups, the provisions for tutors must be put in place, and where vetted give-back students can be sought after in this regard. Madam Speaker, are you aware that the psychiatric hospital does not meet international standards as it relates to the patient-to-nurse ratio? But no plans was mentioned today to combat that. Further, the psychiatric hospital have around 500 patients, when the ideal number at any given time should be around 300 to 400. So therefore, the 60 to 70 community mental health nurses across Barbados must be given additional resources to be able to treat the mental health illnesses from the early and perform any needed educational sensitivity. And this country must move away from institutionalized care being the go-to towards more community care as the way forward. Madam Speaker, resources must be pumped into local, and I stress local, mental health research, and to increase the lone research officer presently employed by the government. Madam Speaker, a greater emphasis must be placed on securing a specialized mental health ambulance once again in quick time, because there's none at the psychiatric hospital. Madam Speaker, I beg, I have additional 2 minutes.
2?
A minute would do then.
A minute.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
I will
Madam
give you 30
Speaker,
seconds.
Thank you very
Please
much.
wrap it up.
Madam Speaker, I can go on and on as this opposition believes that the other side did not have the over 60,000 young people in mind when they wrote this resolution. However, I'll be here for days. Madam Speaker, in closing, I say this. The other side must reel and come again. And when they do, make sure that young people are their focus. Be in touch with the facts, and please, please be in touch with the burdens of the local mental health system in this country. For the lives of these over 60,000 young people we have in this country are at stake. This is Youth Parliament, and we must be working for their interests. With that, Madam Speaker, I'm obliged to you.
I now recognize the Honorable Shakobi Riley.
Thank you for acknowledging me, Madam Speaker. This is Youth Parliament, and we should represent our youth. And I will go with that, and I will say the need for action on mental health is indisputable and urgent. And with that, I will leave out the theatrics. With that, I will get straight down to the meat of the matter. Mental health, yes, we acknowledge from the many repetitive presentations today that it is a problem. We have an issue, we have a crisis. And our resolution seeks to address these crises. And one thing that I will be presenting today is specifically in the resolution C, which is the educational institutions, the implementation of peer support groups should emerge as a valuable approach whereby student volunteers are equipped and trained with training and guidance to assist their fellow schoolmates. Key word there is volunteer. We're not asking, we're not making it mandatory for them to have to sit in a class and with all the other burdens that they have, counsel. That's not what we're asking. We're asking for volunteers. What that means is that people that are willing and interested will come, they will learn what they have to learn about mental health if they're willing, the effects of it, and to learn to be better and effective listeners to be able to pinpoint certain cues that somebody may need help. That is the first thing that we are looking at here. Secondly, we encourage the establishment and growth of peer support groups chaired by those same individuals who would have been trained. Now, we know what a peer support group is, do we? We can
Honorable
say
member,
that
on what point do you rise?
Madam Speaker, I rise on a point of order. The honourable member is misleading this House and the people of Barbados because as we know in Barbados, you don't have to be in school if you're over 16 years of age. And in Barbados, you cannot offer mental support because that is medical support unless you're over 18 years of age. So, Madam Speaker, as a professional or a volunteer, so, Madam Speaker, the honourable member is misleading the House and people of Barbados. So I would ask him to retract that statement. Thank you.
I'm going to ask back for my time because, again, we're not dealing with the theatrics in here. This is a serious matter. Now, back to what I was saying. We acknowledge that these things are important. We acknowledge that young people are affected by certain factors, which has been listed here in all the presentations that were presented. And one of those things happened to be poverty as well. And I'm going to give a story right here, right now. You have Dolly, who is living in an extended family in a 2-bedroom house with 3 siblings and only 1 working parent. I'm sure that some of you may have that friend or may know somebody like that, and won't you be willing to help? Don't you wish that you had the skills or the knowledge?
Honorable member, you have 2 minutes remaining, as the fact of the matter is you went on and I did not say whether I was going to give you the extra time or not.
Oh, thank you.
2 minutes remaining.
Thank you very much. I apologize, ma'am.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry, my passions. Yes, I'm sure that you wish you was able to offer that help. And that is what we are seeking to do here in this resolution. We have, let me pull it up here real quick, counseling training services. We got whole life counseling training service. We got Bright Life Family Center. We got Network Service Center. All of these are people that we can employ to help train these individuals. And I'm not talking about hardcore training. I'm talking about, again, being effective listeners to be able to identify certain cues. That's it. Peer support groups now. We have that space in schools. We have space for extracurricular activities, space that can be used so that people that are suffering can get together and have a conversation with a mediator. That is what we're seeking here with this. We are not asking for you to tell your child, oh, well.
Honorable member, your time is up.
Thank you. I'm going to conclude. I conclude by saying, Madam Speaker, colleagues, that, again, the need for action on mental health is indisputable and urgent, and we cannot sit here and have this conversation and pretend that it is not. The solutions have been offered, and I have right here what we plan to do with the information provided in Section C. With that, I conclude.
I now recognize the Honorable Member Giovanna Eiffel to state the closing remarks.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Once again, I am honored. I closed my speech this morning by saying I was hopeful and optimistic about passing the baton on to the members of the government side. And now, as I stand before you, it is not with a heavy heart or an aching heart, but with a heart that is filled with pride. Looking around this room today, I see the future of our nation is in excellent hands. With not just well-researched and always seeking to improve members of this government, but also with the feedback, which is certainly noted from the honorable members of the opposition. But please do not believe that this government does not care about those who have been lost to the hands of mental health challenges, because they will certainly never be out of state or out of mind. I do hope that all the information provided today was well internalized amongst those who would have had the chance to listen. However, to quickly address some of the misconceptions today, I want it to be clear that when we say our resolution's goal is to be as inclusive as possible, we mean it. And that includes persons in Barbados not at all limited by age, gender, race, or anything of the sorts. It must be inclusive in the sense that their profession does not at all matter. Because at the end of the day, we are speaking about the people of Barbados. And regardless of every reason, persons should be included. Today, as I stand here, I say with every single person and with every single initiative which seeks to do that on this resolution is important, because unlike expressed by some of the members of the opposition, Madam Speaker, this government cares for each and every person behind these solutions and who will benefit from them. This government comes to not just seek improvement, but commend efforts of those who are already working hard. And we say to you, let us indeed share this vision for the future of our Barbados, where each and every Barbadian is mentally healthy and has a safe space to age gracefully, a safe space to express themselves, and a safe space to learn exactly what it means to be mentally healthy. and above all else, a society free of stigma. In the words of the Honorable Prime Minister, Mia Amor Motley, and
Honorable
I quote,
member, you have 2 minutes remaining.
Thank you, I shall conclude shortly. In the words of the Honorable Prime Minister of this country, Mia Amor Motley, and I quote, "Give me the vote and let me see, and watch and see." Sorry. End quote. Well, today I'm telling you, put your faith in this resolution, even if it is as small as a mustard seed, and you will see. Today I ask the honorable members on the government side who are wearing their green ribbons in solidarity to show that we support mental health reform by raising their hands with me. This government is one that seeks change and seeks improvement. Where we recognize shortcomings, we fix them. And with that, Madam Speaker, I support this resolution, and I beg that you. With this, I beg to move the passing of the resolution.
I second that.
The question is for this resolution to be passed. All those in favor say aye. All those against say nay. The ayes have it. This resolution will be passed.
I do ask that we do have a vote to record the nays and yeas on this resolution. And the clerk to record the roll.
Those in favor will say aye, and those against will say no.
Madam Speaker, a divide has been called. As I call the honorable members, those who say nay, those who agree, those who are in favor will say nay, and those who are in favor will say aye. Oh, shoot.
Favor will say aye. Okay, no problem. Stand up, stand up. Those who in favor will say aye.
Those who are in favor will say aye,
And those against will say no.
and those who are against will say no.
Start calling the names on the government side.
Government side, Giovanna Eiffel,
Aye. Yay, sorry.
Tremaine Trotman,
Aye.
Sarah Bistram,
Aye.
Caleb Roach,
Aye.
Narissa McCurry Williams,
Aye.
Ariel Harewood,
Aye.
Trinity Weeks,
Aye.
Janica King,
Aye.
Raymond Small,
Aye.
Tyrell Payne,
Aye.
Kashawn Waldron, Lashante Sobers,
Aye.
Keneal Leslie,
Aye.
Janae Herbert, Jacoby Riley.
Aye.
Opposition, Tyrell Giles,
Nay.
Shaquem Howell,
Nay.
Nathan Simpson,
Abstain.
Maya Spooner, Nathaniel Niles,
Not even if the world is ending. Nay.
Tyson Holder,
Nay.
Brianna Hardy,
Nay.
Nikolai Peters,
Nay.
Kaylin Eileen,
Nay.
Abby Tennis, Joshua Harris,
Nay.
Dante Harvey, Caleb Brathwaite, Abigail Johnson. Abstain. Oh,
She's absent. She's absent. So she's absent.
she's absent.
Okay. You're welcome.
Madam Speaker, as there are 15 ayes and 13 noes, the resolution has been passed.
Madam Speaker, with that, we come to the end of government business for today, and I move the adjournment of this sitting Sunday.
Madam Speaker, I just wish to thank everyone who came out today. The Honorable Liz Thompson, Ambassador. We want to thank the Ministry of Youth, Sport, and Community Empowerment for facilitating this training and this development session and program that we all so benefit from on a yearly basis. And Madam Speaker, as we seek to wrap up, we wish to call to action every single youth organization who is involved in the social practitioner service and the mental health service so that we can have a comprehensive outlook on how we approach solutions to mental illnesses. We have UNDP, USAID, and lots of other local organizations. We've mentioned Let's Unpack It and the Men's Empowerment Network. And we wish that we just have a comprehensive call to action so that we are not operating in silos as we go forward. But I'm obliged to you, Madam Speaker, and once again, thank you everyone for coming out to support us today.
The question is to adjourn this session and this seating. The question is for this Senate House to be adjourned night. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against say nay. The ayes have it. This House is adjourned night. All rise.